Noting the hour, I call the budget workshop for night 2 to order. And we are here, the Acton Select Board, with the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee is in order.
Okay, well, we're back here for a second night of the budget workshops. Thank you to the Finance Committee and Select Board for all the questions and comments from our first round the other night. Before we get started with the next group of presentations, I just wanted to follow up on a question about pension liability, which came up at the meeting. Teresa O'Leary, who was watching from home, sent me this during the meeting, but I didn't see it until later. The question about pension unfunded liability, 53 million, 42% funded as of last valuation, January 1st, 2024. The question, though, that I wanted to mention is that there was a question about where the money's managed. Even though we're in our own system, most of that money is pooled with the state's investments anyways. So we do get the benefit of the investment strategy that the state has, which has worked out well recently. The other question was the collection rate runs at 99.5 to 99.6 until our collection rate is excellent. I think she was, just wanted to make sure that you knew that, but I think you knew that. Yeah, it was a scale, which was my fault. So back to the regularly scheduled program, unless there's any other questions or clarifications. We have a handful of departments that we're going to go through tonight. We're actually going to start with the town manager's budget, which starts on page 93. And the town manager's office, we oversee all the different operations and help the different departments provide the awesome services that they work on every day. The office includes myself, Tom, our assistant town manager, executive assistant, Lisa Tommel over there. Also the economic development director position, which is currently vacant. The diversity, equity, inclusion officer position, which is Wanjiko, who's right here. And then there's a technician specialist that's also vacant that we're doing some different, we're doing some transitions in the department to best meet the needs of the community. And that was one position that we're still working through. We focus on the select board's goals, ensure that all the departments are working to meet them. Our accomplishments are listed, or some of our accomplishments are listed in the book. I think we do a good job of helping departments be successful and improving things everywhere we can. We focus on efficiency. Our job is to do the budget, and part of that is to making sure that each department is running efficiently. And so we do that every year, not just within the budget process, but on a regular basis. Anytime we're looking at whether it's filling vacancies or the way that we're doing things, we're always looking to make sure that we're doing them most efficiently. We have goals that have also been outlined in the budget book. I think if you look at the actual budget itself on page 98, the number that probably stands out the most is comp reserve. That's a number that we set aside primarily for collective bargaining settlements, and our goal is to make sure that that is enough. We try not to go into too much detail about that line item in public meetings like this because we're still actively negotiating with 3 of our unions right now. And so it's something that I'm happy to talk to you about offline if you're interested, but some of it's executive session type discussions. Other items that are notable are professional services. We continue to get grants, and so that's one line item that, even though we have a lot of needs and there's a lot of services that we're trying to do, I'm comfortable that every time a new project comes up, rather than having to go to the town budget, we're able to secure a grant to fund it, and so I'm comfortable reducing that budget a little bit to account for the success that we have in that area. That is the primary budget. The other budgets that are thrown into this group are Cultural Council, which doesn't see a lot of expenses, but it's there to support that operation, that committee. The town meeting budget also is shown here, and that not much has changed with that. Commission on Disabilities, Wanjiko may mention that, but we do have a budget there. It doesn't get a ton of utilization, but it's there if the COD needs it. And so, as I mentioned, there are several programs that are led out of the town manager's office. Economic development is one of them. Sustainability is another, and DEI is a third. And I'm going to invite Wanjiko up to talk a little bit about the work that she's been doing since she was hired last year following a select board directive and town meeting support for establishing a DEI office. We were very excited to have Wanjiko join us a few years ago, and Wanjiko, take it away.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm highly caffeinated and underfed, so bear with me. So my name is Wanjiko Gashohe. I've been with the town now for a little bit more than 2 years. I started in January of 2023. I believe in the budget book, my section begins on page 93. The creation and positioning of my role, as John mentioned, came from a Collins study report that was conducted in January of 2022. I have many years of experience working in a variety of different organizations, international organizations, local organizations, as well as academia. I am pleased to be here tonight to share some exciting updates and initiatives from the DEI office. We've made significant strides in creating a more inclusive and welcoming community, and I'm thrilled to walk you through some of the highlights. One of the major ones that was actually cited in the Collins report was a stronger collaboration between the town and the school. So I actively work with the AB Schools DEI director. We actually meet once monthly. I created a bias incident reporting system. And the purpose of this was to address incidents of bias in the town. So this tool allows for residents to report their experiences and helping us to identify trends and take actionable steps. For example, from some of the incidents that have happened, we've been able to see that there's a need for cultural sensitivity, inclusive conduct, and stronger internal policies. I'm also the staff liaison to the DIC, that's the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission, as well as the COD, and that's the Commission on Disabilities. And as John mentioned, the Commission on Disabilities has a budget of $2,000, which they themselves manage. I'm just the staff liaison. The DI office, me, but I work with every department in town. So even when I use the word we, it is on purpose. I collaborate with all departments. I did want to highlight some of the work that I have been doing. With human resources, I'm involved in all of the hiring practices, as well as all interviews. And most recently, I've been involved in collective bargaining. As mentioned last week, last week I was involved, the DI office was involved with the Acton Police Department, and on the event Cone with a Cop, and actually it was extremely successful. This year, actually, we had our second one. The first year that we had it, we gave away over 300 ice creams, and it was a major hit. I also have worked with the Health and Human Services Department. We've put together several different workshops. And the one that is highlighted in the budget book is where we were working with marginalized communities. We put together 2 separate events. One was on integrating Haitian immigrants. This was, again, another successful event because not only was it for town employees, it also included local organizations were also invited, as well as we had participation from municipalities in the Metro West area. This year, we actually, well, fiscal year '24, we actually also facilitated the town's DEI Strategic Leadership Workshop Series, where all department and division heads were participated in that, so that was successful. We hired our first DEI intern, which was major for us, since I'm a department of one, working with many. This year, actually, which was another great success and really speaks about not only the reach that we have within Acton, but within the region, we actually had a documentary screening for Who We Are, A Chronicle of Racism in America. We had it at the Maynard Fine Arts Theater, and we actually had about 50 participants in there from all different municipalities. And we're going to be having another screening, this one a different theme. We're going to be doing a screening for the documentary Crip Camp, and I'm doing that with the COD. We also, when I say we, a variety of different departments participated in a REACH program. REACH is a program where there's about 10 different municipalities that participated in it, 10 municipalities from Massachusetts. Several departments participated in it, and we would go to Boston once a month on Wednesday. I am extremely excited to say that the DEI office got a community compact grant for $50,000. So we're going to be using that to conduct an equity audit. Yes, so it has been an inspiring year. I'm looking forward to next year. We've made wonderful accomplishments, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to doing more with not only the town of Acton, but also with my coworkers. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Wanjiko. And so that was a good overview of some of the DEI work. The Sustainability Office also is part of our office. I'd like to invite Lauren West up to the mic to discuss that. The Sustainability Office is overseen by Andrea Becerra, who's currently out on leave. This is Lauren, our environmental analyst, and she's going to walk through the budget. And after that, we'll be happy to take questions on all the town manager's office programs. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi all, my name is Lauren West, and I am an environmental analyst in the Sustainability Office. And I've been with the town a little over a year and a half now. As John mentioned, I'll be presenting the Sustainability Office's budget on behalf of our director, Andrea Becerra, and you can find our section of the capital plan beginning on page 103, it should be. So good evening, members of the Select Board and Finance Committee. The Sustainability Office in Acton was created in response to our town's 2020 Climate Emergency Declaration. With a mission to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, enhance climate resilience, and guide the community toward a clean, equitable energy future. In the past year, we secured over $365,000 in grants to support projects like the electric vehicle charging stations at Narra Park, the first town-owned fast chargers at Veterans Field, weatherization and energy efficiency efforts, and natural hazard resilience planning. In partnership with Energize Acton and our dedicated volunteers, we've expanded our clean energy coaching program, helping residents make energy-saving upgrades. As noted on page 107, in the 2024 fiscal year, nearly 90 residents contacted a clean energy coach with questions on solar, heat pumps, and EV charging. We have also worked with businesses to reduce emissions through energy efficiency programs. For example, in the 2024 fiscal year, we organized the Main Streets program in a partnership with the town and Eversource. Through this program, a total of 17 businesses received over $102,000 combined from the utility to complete energy efficiency upgrades. These upgrades cut energy use and costs, saving emissions equivalent to 10,219 gallons of gasoline per year. Looking ahead, our FY 2026 goals include further reducing emissions, enhancing sustainability across departments, and continuing to build partnerships within our community to speed the transition to clean energy. We recently applied to become a Green Communities Climate Leader, which would make us one of the first communities to receive the designation in the Commonwealth. This would enable the town to tap into additional funding, state funding, to improve energy efficiency and cutting costs of electrifying our municipal buildings. The office is committed to leveraging opportunities for grants and collaboration to make progress on the goals of our climate action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Nice work. So thanks. Those were our presentations. We're happy to take any questions on any of those budgets. Thanks.
Thank you. So my question is for the DEI director. You mentioned about the incident reporting system, and I was wondering if it would be possible to come up with a compendium or a list of the sort of incidents that have been reported to you, how they were resolved, if there was any follow-up action that needed to be taken. Certainly with all proper redactions so that we don't need to read everybody's name or anything like that. But I think if people had a document they could look to see exactly the scope of the problem that we might be dealing with, I think that would be very helpful document to come forward. As certainly you're aware, DEI is under a great deal of scrutiny these days. So I think whatever you can come up with in the way of metrics specifically to incidents of bias, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree. And yes, I can come up with a summary.
How many, what does?
There's been about 10, well, I got one today, but there's been 11 as of today. The one today was easy to resolve. It wasn't involving the town itself, but I was able to give some resources. But yes, there have been 10 since I created the reporting system. And yes, I can come up with a summary of all the various incidents and how it was resolved.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a question for Lauren. So some of the sustainability funding comes from some revolving funds. And I was wondering if you could say a little bit about which funds those were and what sort of work you've been able to do for those operations.
Sure. So the main one would be the Energy Efficiency Fund. And that one is kind of based on the savings that we get from other energy efficiency programs. So it's fed by things like our revenues from the electric vehicle chargers, our programs that the town has with like our solar arrays. And that program, or that fund, we use to continue programs like those. So definitely for our EV charger program, sometimes like when repairs come up, or like software fees, those funds are used towards that. And then, yeah, I would say any other like programming that we do could be funded there, or weatherization work. We often get grants to weatherize our buildings to make them run more efficiently, but also sometimes we need to match some funds, so that program can be used there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would just add that the team is very successful in finding grant funds. So that, in addition to the Energy Revolving Fund and the operating budget and ARPA, which was a large source for a lot of cool programs that were led by the Sustainability Office, they bring in grants seems like every month I'm having to sign on a new grant that they found and were successful in competing for. So a lot of energy coming out of the Sustainability Office.
I have a question for each of you, and then just a general comment. Lauren, I think this is for you. I noticed that there was a drop in the cost of waste disposal, and for the town. Is that related to the composting efforts? Because I know that food waste, at least in households, is the heaviest component of buildings disposal.
Yeah, I can't say for sure. I don't have the data in front of me right now, but definitely an increase in composting, and the transfer station does a really good job of sorting recycling. That's a big issue these days when with the bulk recycling, things aren't always as financially desirable to the companies who are collecting them. So I would say because our transfer station does such a good job of separating out trash, but then also any recycling or compost, that would definitely decrease the trash costs as well, yeah.
And then my other question for you, Wanjiko, is I see in the FY '26 goals, you mentioned working with businesses, and I'm wondering if there's any specific program that you have in mind for implementing, because I've heard a lot recently about Concord's You Belong in Concord initiative, where their DEI committee is working with businesses to help improve, their ability to make more welcoming environments in their businesses and attract more customers. So just wondering if there's anything specific you have planned.
I have some ideas. We've spoken about some ideas. Implementing them right now would be an issue because there isn't somebody in that role. But yes, we have some ideas about reaching out to women-owned businesses and as well as minority-owned businesses. And actually, this came about from the conversation that we had at the community movie screening, where somebody asked if there is a place where they can be able to see very clearly minority-owned businesses. So yes, we're planning on doing that, yeah. Or that's an idea.
Great. So I guess my general comment, I'm glad that you mentioned the position, your position's foundation in the work of the Collins Center, and that was in response to the DEIC, which was created by the Select Board, I think in 2020. So, that was one of their recommendations from their report to create this position, and town meeting approved the funding. I participated in a listening session with the Collins Center, and I got the sense that the community members who were participating didn't have a firm handle on the key aspect of the position, which was an organizational one rather than a benefit to the community. That is a benefit for sure because of all of the relationships that you're building with community organizations and working with the schools and working with businesses. But I think that maybe what is more hidden for people, and sort of along the same vein of Dean's suggestion, to create some information for residents. The bias incident reporting is just one tiny piece of the work, and there's a lot that goes on where you're working with department heads and all staff, in hiring and policies and even reviewing bylaws and things. So it's really about making the organization of the town government stronger and more effective and more inclusive and equitable. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to mention that. And I really appreciate the work that you have planned, working in conjunction with the health department for the community health audit, along with this diversity audit. I think that that's going to have a big impact. And obviously, anti-racism work is really important, but so is working on, making the community and the town government more inclusive for people with disabilities or people with, language learning and, various, immigration status and religion and marital status and education. So, diversity is not just about race. So thank you.
Sure. This is for you, John. Compensation reserve. I guess you can tell me this. What unions are still being negotiated with?
Thank you. So the three contracts that'll expire in June are the two police unions and the fire union. So patrol, superior
Supervision,
officers.
patrol.
And
okay.
the fire union is all inclusive. It's the officers and the and everyone in the union together.
And how in the world do you get the legal budget to go down? We used to spend a lot more than that.
You know, we have, thank you for noticing that. I didn't mention it because it's not good luck to say something like that, but since you said it, it's fine. We've been working on risk management, and I think we work closely with Town Council's office to have office hours, which I think has been a useful way for staff and select board members and others to efficiently get some legal guidance rather than sort of a chain of emails that creates hours of work, et cetera. So hopefully that remains the case, and we won't be talking about legal services budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have one question and one comment, one clarification question and one comment. So the question is to the town manager. So this 200 grant, this compensation reserve, that includes the pay raise for the police and fire, or just for the operations office?
Yeah, so it's for the 3 collective bargaining units, which include police and fire employees. So it's approximately 100, less than 100 employees.
So that was a budget item also for compensation reserve in the FY24 budget, and that was not used. So that rose to this year's budget, right? Or was it used for some other things?
So that was a question, thank you for raising that. That came up in the questions that we provided to you. Let me see if, I don't know if you brought it back with you from last week, but I can read it. The budget, no spending is shown in that line because the budget was distributed to the various departments at the start of the fiscal year to cover a cost of living increases. The spending of that comp reserve is reflected in each department, actual spending on salaries. Last year, there were only 2 unions that we were working with, and they were much smaller employment groups. And we were able to, we didn't get a contract settlement. That's why we had to end up doing it at a special town meeting. So that's part of the reason as well.
Right, thank you. And one comment for the DI officer. So the comment is that I'm glad to see that the Acton government is promoting diversity, equity, inclusion in this community, which is really needed. And it's related to the comment Alisa has made. This marginalized group are marginalized because many of them are not aware that they can reach out to government when they need help. And this report, system to a good thing, and to increase the utilization of this system, maybe you can do more outreach directly to the community. Either go to the community, they are more active, or you use some platforms or some maybe multiple languages that they can understand to increase the usage of this system.
And actually, along with that, so one of the things that we have been able to do is to increase language access. Whenever we're communicating with people who live in the town, we're sure to put down the majority of the languages that are spoken. So there's a blurb on there that's translated into, that says in different languages, have this document translated. Because we are trying to engage more and change the culture for some people who are not used to engaging with government. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It would be also helpful to let them know like what action you would take well after you receive this report, what the government can do to help them. So, thank you.
I have a couple comments, I think, or questions for everybody. So, John, the unions, the compensation reserve, when do those agreements come up for renewal? The 3 unions?
They expired June 30th, so that they would go into effect at the start of the fiscal year 26.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm off by a year. Thank you.
Okay.
I just lost a year of my life, whatever. And tell me how to say your name again. Wanjico, thank you. The name of, like you mentioned, all these other areas that you could, that you're considering, and the DEI has a connotation that associates it specifically, it's, with racial and LGBTQ stuff. And I think if you wanted to reach out or make it clear to other people, other constituencies in town that their services, maybe a name change would be in order. And I think there used to be, is a community services position before, I think, right? And that's not in here anymore? Community Services Director was in here in FY '24, and that position isn't, I think that DEI's got, like, it carries a negative connotation for a lot of people, myself included, to be honest. And I think if you want to get to reach more people, a better description of what of your services would be useful for you. And Lauren, my question, did you have anything? I didn't mean to just talk at you and then move on. Do you have any? Okay, sorry. And my question for Lauren is, what do you and Andrea spend the vast majority, what do you spend the majority of your time doing? Looking for grants, it sounds like, which is good.
Yeah, lots of things, I'd say. So I'm an environmental analyst, so I kind of manage a lot of the reporting side. So there's certain grants that we're only eligible for if we submit annual reports. So like the Green Communities funds that we get, we have to submit annual reports. I also worked on our greenhouse gas inventory, just as some data for the town to have. And we manage like the clean energy coaching program, lots of other things in town. But yeah, mostly applying for grants, and then once we get the grants, kind of carrying them out. We have a couple grants to hire some fellows for the upcoming summer, so we'll have to hire those folks, and then we'll have them do plenty of other projects. And we also collaborate with a lot of other departments in town to work on like conservation efforts. We help with the Habitat for All planning effort. And we've had some programs like the Main Streets program I mentioned, where we work with businesses. So it's really a big mix of things, but a lot of the time is definitely looking for grant funding.
Thank you. And so, John, so this office just created 2 years ago, 3 years ago? You said FY 20?
Around there, yeah.
Okay. Was anybody writing these grant proposals before this office came into existence? This department?
Certainly, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think that some of the program services that are provided are shown on page 105 and 106. It goes into more detail about some of the work that goes on. It's not just getting grants and then reporting on grants. It's also through the guidance of the select board and the community, a climate action plan was developed and published a year and a half ago or so. And within that are several recommendations for implementation that the select board have encouraged us to move forward on implementing. And that's the sole responsibility of this office, is to advance those initiatives. And some of the initiatives that Lauren mentioned are leading towards the goal of implementing things within the climate action plan. But there are several others that weren't mentioned that are also underway, helping managing our environmental EV fleet acquisition and management program, and several other things as shown here. So yes, we did use the Green Communities Grant Program for approximately $100,000 a year before the Sustainability Office was created, but now we're bringing in twice that every year and using it very effectively to advance community goals.
Thank you.
So following last week's meeting, I understand there is now a pool on how many times I'll ask the key performance indicator question. So instead of asking each one of you 3 times and collecting a tidy fee, let me ask the question once and have each one of you sort of elaborate how would you know that you're, on your way towards meeting your objectives?
Well, I'll go first. I get publicly reviewed on that every year by the select board. So it's wide out there, out into the public, whether I'm meeting the objectives of the office, and the team that we've assembled helps do all that. So that's one thing that I think we use to make sure that we're being successful. There's also data in here that shows trends that we use to measure how we're doing. Wanjiko, I think, did you have something further on?
Yes. So some of the KPIs can be, or are, participation in DEI events, so the number of participants. Workforce diversity, has it increased, decreased, things of that nature. Training completion, this is for staff. And the equity audit that we're going to be doing, there's going to be implementation deadlines on there and things of that nature, so that will be another way that we would be able to have firm indicators. And then for the bias incident report, number of incidents, trends in the various incidents, resolutions, things of that nature.
I would say for our office, there's mainly 3 ways that we're tracking our metrics. So the first would be the greenhouse gas inventory that I mentioned. We had a consultant complete one for 2017, and then last year I completed one for 2022. So our goal is to continue annually, if we can, doing a greenhouse gas inventory so that we can track our emissions reduction in line with our goal for net zero by 2030. And then similarly with our climate action plan, as John mentioned, that kind of guides our office. So we created last summer a climate action tracker that shows the progress on each of our actions within the climate action plan. So based on that tracker, we can see what progress we've made each year. And then lastly, I would say when it comes to helping residents reach their sustainability goals, we have our clean energy coaching program, and we track how many requests we get, and then we're working on getting some better metrics on how many folks have actually taken action to electrify their homes. So I would say those 3. Thank you.
Good. Then the second question I have, which didn't turn out to be an over-under question, so somebody's missing a bidding opportunity. But the second question I have has to do with efficiency versus effectiveness. So I expressed last week that, nobody, seriously, wants you to do more with less. That's a bogus request. But if you had to wrestle with the issue of doing the same with less, i.e. being more efficient, or doing more with the same, in other words, figuring a way to be more effective, how often do you wrestle with those issues? What are the ideas that you have looking forward? Because one of the things that the FinCom is going to try to do is to keep expenses from growing faster than the town taxpayers' ability to pay them. So efficiency and effectiveness are going to be a key part of the discussion.
Thank you. I think that question sort of summarizes a lot of the things that we discussed and presented here, whether it was reductions in legal services or reductions in professional services due to efficiencies in how we administer those programs, or grants that we've received to not have to spend as much local funding. I think that's something that we've done a lot of. We mentioned grants that we received. It may sound like a broken record, but I think it's a really good record, and it's worth repeating that the amount of money that we're bringing in from external sources significantly offsets the needed local investment from local taxpayers, and it allows us to operate more efficiently, achieve more goals without having to add funding requests. So, if you look at the capital improvement plan from a few years ago, and you look at a number of things that we've done from that plan with grant funding, it's a pretty good track record, and that's something that we prioritize, and it's an important way that we can do things efficiently. And I think it is doing more with less, really, because we're using less local investment to do more projects and programs.
That's a question for the town manager, and it's only because I haven't done my own research on this, but I think a lot of us heard over the weekend that the state owes the federal government $2.5 billion, and that the money, the principal portion of it's going to come out of the state's general fund, So, and I know this budget book was presented before the information was, made public. So my question is there any financial risk in the existing budget that this shortfall that the state has is going to impact the town of Acton? And it's only, because I'm not sure, I've never gone for a grant, so I don't know if this affects grants, if the general fund is losing money at, whatever that is a year, without the interest. Do you know, or is that?
That's a great time and very timely question. Thank you for bringing that up. If you look on page 25, it's projecting the revenues that we'll use to fund the budget next year. And fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, only about 1% of our budget is from state aid. So if there is a change in the revenue picture from the state, it would certainly impact us, but not to the extent that it would impact other organizations.
That includes all the grants as well?
Well, I mean,
1%?
those grants, if they scale back on grants, then it could have an impact, but not something that we'd be able to measure or be that concerned with.
So do you know, like, how the state's really handling this? I just heard it on the radio, so I haven't done, any research on it, so.
Yeah, it's related to, and, the Finance Administration presentation was last week, and they talked about how diligent they are with unemployment claims, and I believe it has to do with that. And so I think our exposure locally is probably pretty limited, and I think the state has probably been working on this for a little while, and what was announced yesterday was just what they've been working on. So I guess it remains to be seen, and we'll hear more. We're actually going to hear from the governor on Friday this week at the MMA conference, where she'll announce her estimates for local aid. So, and we'll learn more about if that will have any impacts on us. So I'll let you know next week.
Thank you, John. Lauren, there's a question for you. It's, 2026 goals, and it says Town Hall and Red House is, impact and emissions reduction, electrifying. What is going on with the Red House that we should be aware of?
Sure. Sorry.
Very excited about that project, so
Yes.
Lauren's ready to talk about it.
There is a lot going on at the Red House right now. So we received a grant from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council to do some renovations to the outdoor portion of the space. Before we received that grant, the goal was, we have this building, it looks like a house, it used to be a house, and we want to use it as an example for residents of how they can, one, electrify their house, but it's kind of grown beyond that now to anything they can do to kind of make their house more resilient to climate change. So the main goal is obviously to electrify it. It's currently heated with oil and gas. So we have plans in the very near future to fully electrify that building. And the goal someday is to have it available for folks to kind of walk through and see the equipment, ask questions about how they could do that in their own home. And then with the outdoor space, we got a grant to do some landscaping upgrades. So we installed a pollinator garden, a rain garden, kind of bolstered the meadow that was existing there. We did lots of invasive removal, planted native species, and then we're also getting some accessible raised garden beds, accessible picnic tables. There'll be info panels. So the goal is really to have a pocket park that's very focused on sustainability.
Thank you. John, in relation to that, is there any departments that are utilizing that house now, or using that building, I should say now?
Thank you. Yeah, the Sustainability's office and a portion of the operations department works out of that office. And then public meets there sometimes, but it's mostly those offices that use it. It's a pretty cool space. You should come check it out.
Yeah, I've been in it years and years ago, so, thank you.
I have a question for each. Wanjiko, you mentioned that you are part of the interviewing process. Are you also part of the exit interviews to see how we did?
I have not been so far. But that is a plan, yes.
Great. And then Lauren, are there any current initiatives that are being funded by grants now that you anticipate we're going to continue to be responsible for after the grant runs out? In other words, are there any initiatives that are going to become an obligation to the general fund? And if so, what's the scale and what's the time? And I don't expect you to know it off the top of your head, but love to know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't think of any right now that we would fully take over. I can think of like a couple grants where they helped like create a program or fund like for our EV chargers, we get funding to install the chargers, and then sometimes we have to continue paying like the software. But typically a grant sponsors like a specific, like purchasing an EV or building upgrades or hiring a fellow, and most of those have kind of a end time to them. I can't think of anything that would continue.
I think the EV is a good example. Well, they'll give us, like the new one we have over on the corner of 27 and Great Road, which is a fast charger, which is a really cool amenity for the community. They gave us, I think, 5 years worth of maintenance costs for that and installed it for free. But 5 years from now, we'll have to start paying for it. We'll use the revenue from the chargers, because we charge something reasonable, and it pays for the electricity, and it'll eventually start to pay for the maintenance. So that is an example of something that we'll have to cover on our own, but we have a mechanism in place to do so.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have one not a follow-up, but Wanjiko, and it's a question for you, but I'm glad you're both here. I'm so glad, Wanjiko, that you touch so many departments, and Lauren, you do too. You know, just bopping around town is amazing. But Wanjiko, I just wanted to ask you, and not meaning to put you on the spot, but what has been the biggest challenge in the 2 years that you've been here? And we know it's understaffed at Town Hall. We know that. I just wanted to know if there was something that we don't know.
I'm thinking about the question because it would depend on the circumstance. All that being said, if there were 10 people, I know that there would still be issues, right? The fact that I work with so many different departments, each department has its own culture. Navigating each culture in each department can be a challenge. Then there's the organizational culture. Then there's the culture of Acton. So the DEI office literally has to be multicultural to work with so many different groups. Sometimes it feels like I don't have a footing because when I'm talking to fire, it's a different language in quotes, than speaking to HR. So navigating that space, I would say, has been my greatest challenge. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I'm glad you're both are here.
I just want to follow up, since you mentioned language, just to follow up on Gang's comment about being more accessible to community members in other languages. We do have on the town website the tool to translate, but it's kind of hidden, like many things on the town website. So you actually have to open up site tools and scroll down. So just to give you another example, I have no idea how easy this is to implement, but the AB United Way website has the select language button out along the top bar. So that might be something that we could implement on the town website. I hope it would be easy to do. And then I just wanted to also follow up on the legal services reduction that Steve pointed out. John, I remember asking if that could be reduced last year, but we had 3 zoning changes to bring to town meeting that needed reviews. So is that also part of the reduction, in addition to using office hours to more efficiently resolve legal questions? And what would we be reviewing besides Habitat for All this year?
Well, legal services is used for zoning changes and zoning issues and several things. I think over the last 5 years, we've worked to have less legal services required. And so I think it's just been a trend if you look back. I haven't, but I think it's been going down over the last 5 years, and we're just going to continue to do that. We could have 3 zoning articles this year, but hopefully not, or maybe not, I don't know. But I think it's not, there's nothing that we said in particular that we know we can reduce from, other than looking at the actuals and knowing that there's nothing imminent that we need to start building up resources to try to address in terms of a big lawsuit or something. Where in the past, there had been big lawsuits that the town was dealing with. There aren't any right now, thankfully. Well, some of us can depart the stage here. Nice job, team. Well done. So in the next business, next operation on the program is the operations department. This is a department that is a relatively new name. It's the combination of a few different departments that have been around for a while, and last year we consolidated into an operations team. We're going through some transition in this department right now. Our CIO and operations director, Mark Hald, retired at the end of the year. And Matt Frost, who was our deputy director of operations, his last day was Friday. He got a new job. So that's a pretty significant transition that we're working through. It's literally happening right now. So we're working our way through exactly what that would look like. Fortunately, we have a strong team here. Kristen Alexander, who really stepped up over the last few months to help support the transition that had already started. And Tom Bejan, our assistant town manager, are going to be taking the lead in working through that transition. We'll be hiring right away for another technology lead position, which I'm hoping to have out the door before the end of the month. And then we'll continue to keep folks up to date on how that transition is going forward. But with that as an intro, I'll hand it over to Tom to go over the operations budget.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Finance Committee and Select Board members. I'm honored to present the FY26 Operating Department budget for you tonight, and that can be found on page 109. The division is supported by a hardworking and dedicated team who have contributed to the many accomplishments throughout the year that I'll touch on in a couple moments. I want to thank Kristen, Andrea Ristine, Chris West, John Fleming, Dave Marderosian, Cody Bailey, Dale McGilvery, Mary Murphy, Brian Cody, and Justin Flynn. I also want to thank Billy Martinez, who recently left the department for a position with DPW. The operations department consists of public facilities, projects and procurement, IT, and GIS. The department is currently funded 14.323 positions across these offices, which can be found on page 110. As part of the department's responsibilities, staff manage operations inside of 28 facilities consisting of 217,000 square feet, include the management of building systems like HVAC, plumbing, and electrical systems, manage projects and procurement across these town facilities, manage radio and communication systems for the town, and support over 500 technology users across all town departments, boards, committees, and commissions. A few of the KPI the department uses are shown on page 113 and 114. Sorry to contribute to the under Greg. I would like to highlight the graph showing hotline calls answered and received. This has been a very successful program spearheaded by Kristen and a number of town staff across many departments. In FY24 alone, you'll notice in the graph that the program experienced an increase of over 1,000 calls in comparison to FY23. This is proof that the program is a success and continues to grow throughout the community. Another KPI are IT help desk tickets. The tickets received annually continued to be above 2,000, showing the need for additional support and highlighting how it has become a useful resource for not only staff, but for members of boards, committees, and commissions as well. Over the past year, the division has had many accomplishments that we are proud of. A few of those highlights include that IT successfully and seamlessly produced the 2024 annual town meeting that had record voter turnout. This is the largest in Acton town history and potentially state history. GIS created 75 maps that supported multiple departments and compiled and calculated public works data regarding catch basin buildup and utility pole validation. The Public Facilities Division completed the repointing and the restoration project of the Isaac Davis Monument, related markers and other memorials on the town common, town library, and Red House lawns as well. Projects and procurement solicited 22 bids and contracts that totaled $6,730,000 in contracts in FY24. Each division has a number of goals for FY26 as well to build upon the successes of 25 and continue progress toward achieving goals established by the Select Board. A few of those goals include complete the female locker room expansion at the public safety facility, undertake the public safety or radio system upgrade Phase 2 and implement Phase 1, upgrade system-wide GIS to ARC Pro, complete the upgrade of the Cisco telephone system as well. While this budget is level services, there are some increases as a result of an increase in need in facilities and software management and maintenance. On page 116, you will see an increase of $56,000 to the MIS equipment and software line item. This is to accommodate the incorporation and continued expanded use of Google and provides for funding for replacement and upgrade of aging computer systems. On page 117, you'll also notice an increase to the public facilities budget and the contractual services line item. This is for HVAC maintenance contracts that help with the routine maintenance and repairs of HVAC systems throughout town buildings as they continue to age. Additionally, we have begun transitioning to more reliance on contractual janitorial services to meet the operational needs and staffing challenges we've been experiencing inside the department. That's a full rundown of the operations department portion of the budget. John, Kristen, and myself are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean.
Thank you. Looking on page 110, your full-time equivalent positions, it appears that you're, under public facilities, you're eliminating a craftsperson and instead hiring a project coordinator. Could you explain to me the job descriptions and what those two, the position that you're getting rid of and the position that you hope to acquire, what the difference is and exactly what the expectations are for the new project coordinator?
Thank you. That's something that, as I mentioned, there's a lot of transitions that we're working through. We've had a really difficult time recruiting positions, particularly in the facilities, in the maintenance and the craftsperson role, literally a year. We had someone and it didn't work out for one reason or another. And we have had very little success trying to bring people in the door. And so we thought that we could rearrange the way that that's staffed and find a job that maybe someone would apply to. And that's the goal of the project coordinator position. A lot of the work that Kristen and Matt, what we're doing was meeting contractors, meeting vendors, and spending time making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is important, but it takes away from the work that they do the rest of the time, or that they're supposed to be doing the rest of the time. So a project coordinator would be that person. Do you want to add to that? Or do you want to add to that? The craftsperson was created as sort of a second lead to the crew leader, and it really just hasn't functioned that way in the way that we thought it would. And so that's why we're always trying to find new ways to accomplish the goals of the organization, and that one is something that's happening now. I guess we didn't do a good job of telling you all that, but I'm glad that you raised it now because we're hoping to move forward with that as the plan.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but Kristen, I just wanted to let you know that I work with a few community groups, and I'm hearing rave reviews of all of the additional maps that are being made available in GIS, so thank you for that. They're very, very useful for a lot of work that people do in town.
Sorry, Kristen, could you briefly talk about the hotline program? Because this is just to get ahead of a question that I anticipate coming, doing more with less. I think that this is an example of, sorry, you can still say it. This is an example of how we took the existing staffing and an existing coordinator and asked you all to do more without adding to it. And if you could just explain what that looks like.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kristen Alexander. And just to let you know, I've been here over 24 years with the town of Acton. So I manage the hotline. I have about 26 other staff that work with me and help me out, answering calls from anyone that calls the 6600 number. We're down, I don't know, we'll say 5 or 6 people right now, so there's quite a few empty slots, but everyone, all the employees that help me on the hotline really pitch in for those empty slots and just pick up the calls when they're at their desk, whenever the phone rings, whenever someone else cannot answer the phone. The most we let the hotline ring is three rings, and we'll make sure we pick it up. And if someone calls over the weekend and leaves a voicemail, I check it every few hours to make sure. I listen to those voicemails, and it's not an emergency. If it is, I forward it to dispatch. I don't know, calls range from dog license calls to, can I speak with the building department, to, I don't know where to go. I don't even know if I should be calling the town, but I don't know who else to call. And we also get calls from Acton, California, looking for Acton, California, Acton, Canada, Acton, Maine. I've learned about more Actons in, the world than I ever knew existed. So that's it.
I have no questions because you're answering them before I even get to them. But let me then share one observation. There are 7 Actons in the United States, 1 in London, and 1 in Australia.
Scott?
Thank you, Greg. My life is better now. A question for town manager. And this is kind of a broad question. What I've heard in the last couple meetings and this conversation right here is that there's job changes, people in difficulty refilling positions, time refilling positions. And in general, I view staffing changes kind of in like 3 buckets. It's either, first bucket's like people leave because of job growth or satisfaction. Second bucket is compensation. They just get a better paycheck somewhere else. And the third is some life-changing event. In general, not necessarily this one department, would you say that any of those is exceeding the other? And the reason why I'm asking the question is my part 2 of this is if it is compensation, is driving people, maybe valued staff away from the town, does the existing budget as proposed mitigate that risk going forward, or is that going to be a risk that we're going to live with moving forward? It's kind of a 2-parter.
Thank you. That's a very good question. I think the 3 buckets that you laid out, I think life changes is probably a big one. I think public safety in particular, we've seen a lot of retirements in the last few years, and I think also finance and operations retirements, so I would consider that a life-changing thing that a lot of times we know it's coming because we're notified and we can plan for it. Sometimes we have less time to plan for it. In terms of compensation, We look closely at that, particularly with collective bargaining. That's part of the process, is looking at how we line up and whether that's affecting our ability to retain employees. I think we're generally competitive for both union and non-union, but it's something that we need to continue to keep an eye on because the talent pool is limited for local government. And finance has been known to be an issue for a while in terms of there just aren't a lot of people that want to be into local government finance. We're thankful we have a finance committee, but there's not a lot of people that want to do it for a living, as there may have been. So we have a good bench that we're building, and under Marian's leadership, we've been doing a lot of succession planning. So I think life changes is the biggest one that we're dealing with, and compensation always is an issue. But as I mentioned, I think we're generally competitive. So we need to continue to try to find new ways to attract people to come here, offer benefits that will get them to go from, a lot of the towns are similar. So, and they don't know how awesome Acton is because they just doesn't come across their radar. So we're doing everything we can to raise our profile across the state so that people know more about Acton and they want to come from towns that are similar and come work here instead.
Thank you. So that means the bucket of job satisfaction is the least, which is good news.
I think this is a great place to work.
Yeah.
I think we could ask everyone else. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know if
Do you want to ask everyone in the
time.
room? Maybe that'd be more fair, but I think it's a great place to work. And I think support from elected leaders and appointed leaders, which we have, I think goes a long way for how someone feels about their job. And I think that's one thing we have in our community.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is Tom the one you can complain about the heat in this room now?
Yes.
I just had a question about the help desk technician position that you want to add. I don't know who's going to answer that, Tom? You're pointing the mic at him, okay. I was wondering, have you considered outsourcing that? Every job I've been at, even if they have an internal IT director, they outsource the help desk.
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, it's a little unique. The help desk tech and some of the organizations that you're referring to, they wouldn't necessarily be dealing, and I'm assuming, so I apologize if this assumption's wrong, but dealing with boards, committees, and commissions, and a lot of the help desk tickets that come in are from some of those members. So here, having a help desk tech that works for the town is a face that people can go in and meet with and sit down and work through the issues and almost be taught how to avoid the situation that created the help desk is something that is unique and really kind of separates that away from us being able to outsource it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I also want to follow that on this IT services. I assume that you are talking about the IT service providing to the government offices. Have you thought about service sharing, cost sharing with other towns? Because this is an area that a lot of service sharing is happening.
I'm sorry, in terms of IT, help desk or just in general for IT services?
In general, IT services, including the help desk technician, service sharing with some other government, or are you aware of some other service sharing arrangement that's happening around other towns that we could be part of?
Yeah, I know the city of Melrose and a few towns around there share an IT department. And so it's happened before. And I think it's something that we can certainly look at. Our immediate needs, I think, are such that we need to rebuild the staffing that we've lost, particularly the leadership. But that's a good idea, and it's something that we should look at, whether it's help desk or it's some of the other sort of in-between things that are more that would be easier to share. We do it in every department. We find ways to share services, so that's definitely something we could take another look at. Thank you.
I'd just like a confirmation that all the monies expended on 17 Woodbury renovation and addition are either coming out of CPC or out of federal grants.
And ARPA, yes. So the money that we'll be spending going forward, yes. The money that we've spent in the past, there's been other sources. But going forward, the construction, which will start next week or this week, will be federally funded for the most part.
Please make sure you keep it away from any general fund obligation because it was made clear at town meeting that this was not a worthwhile expenditure.
More questions? Is this like the public facilities? Have we talked about that? Okay. I love the goal of cleaning cannons. How much does that cost? I'm just curious.
If I believe I have the number right, I think it was a few $1,000s, but it was also part of an effort to get everything looking as nice as possible for the 250.
Okay. I love the goal. And then, but the one I wanted to ask about was the progress on town hall electrification. So how much of that is in here and where do I see that?
That's a great question. So that specific project is a capital request for FY26. There is a $3.75 million capital request that the annual debt payment will be split between the Sustainability Revolving Fund as well as the general fund. To date, the project was allocated money out of ARPA to pay for base design and OPM services, which are currently underway.
Okay, and what does the 3.75 cover?
Great question. So the 3.75 will cover electric upgrades to this building. As you can tell, it's definitely in need of some electrical upgrades to be able to support the systems that'll be installed, and then HVAC improvements and installations inside of the building, as well as if there's funding left over, an appropriate generator for the building that was lost. I believe it was in the microburst that occurred in 2023. There's a temporary generator on the Woodbury side right now that we need to replace. And if there's funding available inside of this project, that would be included in it.
Okay, so in the survey the study that was done a couple of years ago about the cost, like $111 million to electrify everything, are these items included in that? And is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And are the costs that you're budgeting now in line with those estimates from 2 or 3 years ago, or are the costs going up? I'm wondering about that plan, how much more is that going to be, as those other items start to come up, how much more are they going to be than what was reflected in that study just because of inflation and so on?
Sure, that's a great question. Unfortunately, we don't totally know what the cost would be in relation to 2 or 3 years ago, but the number that we used, the 3.75, was pulled from that study, and it's also after speaking with the consultants that we're working with on the project. We'll know as soon as we get further into design, but that 3.75 we anticipate on being able to accomplish quite a bit of things that we're moving forward with.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to elaborate a little bit more on the 3.75 million and to give it a little historical perspective about this building. When this building was renovated in the late 1980s, we installed an oil heating system with an underground fuel tank. About 20 years later, we replaced it with a natural gas system. Since that time, there's not been a whole lot of upgrades to this building as far as the control system, the HVAC system. These were installed on a very tight budget in 1986, 1987. So it's time. Certainly the electrification, we can argue about that one way or another, whether that's a good idea or not. But the simple fact is that as we sit here in a insufferably warm room because the control system that wasn't really great in the 1980s is a great deal worse now. I think there's probably some savings that could be generated, and I think you do have to realize that the age of the building, the age of the system, it really badly needs some upgrades. Thank you.
So are the things in the budget now, or do they lock us? Because I think that eventually we have to talk about electrification, whether it's a good or bad idea, because, but are the things that we're doing now kind of, would we do them anyway? Like, would they be necessary upgrades even if we were upgrading to a newer gas heating system?
Sure, so baseline, yes. This building, as Dean had just mentioned, this building needs an electrical service upgrade and a refresh. The HVAC system needs the same. It's 40-plus years old, so it needs to be replaced. So those two components, yes, as well as the generator, yes. Those would need to happen whether or not this was a truly electrification project or just a building system revival project.
But once we do them, is the only path forward full electrification of Town Hall? Or could they support another type of heating system? Or
It would be
whatever
a
system,
full,
energy system, whatever you want to.
yeah, that's a fair question. It would be a full electrification. We would have to talk to our designers to see if there's some flexibility there and what that would entail, but I would imagine it would be costly as well.
Just to follow up on that, because we have both an aging AC system and an aging heating system, the electrification route is the only route that will get us solve both of those problems with one system. So it ends up being financially efficient for that reason, as well as the fact that it's a lot more efficient than a fossil fuel system.
Yeah, just because I've never searched this before, I just did now. The cost of a BTU versus natural gas or electric. And natural gas is 60% cheaper than electric heat. That's what it says.
That would be baseboard electric heat, which is inherently very inefficient. Heat pumps extract heat or expel heat from the environment, so they're many more times more efficient than a gas system.
So, or said another way, the energy you get from electricity is multiplied by something, well, for an air source heat pump, by 3 seasonally, right? So for every unit energy, however you want to measure it, kilowatt, you get 3 kilowatts of heat, right? So you have to multiply the electric side by 3. If it's geothermal, you have to multiply it by 4, maybe 4.5. So electric systems are much more efficient. And it is really a fallacy to start with the assumption that the fossil fuel system is cheaper. In general, that's not true, right? Maybe you can find something that's cheaper, but in general, that's not true, and including what Jim mentioned, that you're getting one system to replace 2.
Sounds like you've looked into this already, so.
So I would just mention, Lauren talked about our energy coaching program. There are volunteers in the community. 2 of them happen to be sitting right next to each other over there. David and Jim both serve as energy coaches, and they don't not just entitled, they do the work, and they've been in people's homes. They recorded videos and commercials. So if you have questions about electrification, you certainly can talk to the sustainability office, but you'd be well served talking to either of them as well.
So my question was appropriate in this environment, so they could answer it, so.
Okay, well, thank you, operations team. Thank you, Kristen. Tom, you can stay up here though if you want. Are we good? Do you want to take a break, or do you want to? I think we're at the halfway point. Oh, you want recreation? Recreation's so fun, don't you want to do that before you take a break? Okay.
Great choice. I'm going to invite Melissa Sedapani-Rufo up, the Director of Recreation, to give us a presentation on our budget.
Good evening, Select Board and Finance Committee. My name is Melissa Sedapani-Rufo. I'm the Recreation Director, and I've been working for the town for 13 years and have been in the director role for almost 6 years. The recreation budget narrative starts on page 118. Recreation employs 3 full-time staff members. 2 positions are funded by the general fund. Myself in the Recreation Office Manager, Mary Lou Rapucci. Our new position, Activities and Program Coordinator, is being funded through the Recreation Revolving Account, which is a 53E&a-half account. Recreation revolving budget is on page 184, so the revolving budget's 184. Recreation reports to the Assistant Town Manager, which is Tom Began. We also have over 70 seasonal positions, including camp, waterfront, and park staff for NARA and the Recreation Center. Recreation oversees all municipal recreation facilities, parks, and fields. Our largest operations occur at NARA Park, with all the summer camps, the beach, the event series, and the field and facility rentals. Throughout the year, we offer programs for all ages and abilities. Recreation also helps develop, maintains fields, facilities, courts, and playgrounds. Other than our 2 full-time staff, our finances and seasonal staff operate under the revolving account, and our 3rd full-time staff. Recreation also manages the town celebrations account and many different gift accounts. We also apply for multiple grants per year, like the state's ADA grant, which funded the sidewalk ramp project at the NARA Sports Plaza, the State Municipal Festivals Grant, which funded the Marionette Series last year in 2024, and CPA, which primarily funds most of our large capital projects. The proposed fiscal year 26 budget was created by analyzing expenditures from the previous fiscal years. At this time, Recreation is proposing a level-funded budget. Working with Tom and staff from the Finance Department, we've created a level-funded budget, bottom-line budget, even when adding a new full-time position coming out of the rec revolving account. Here's how we did that. So for the past few years, our youngest camper groups, pre-K through 3rd grade at NARA Summer Camp, have been filling up for every single session. Our older groups, which are the 6th through 8th graders, and CITs get very few registrations. So this coming summer, we rearranged camp. We set up to accommodate more younger kids and entice older kids by adding a leader in training program to achieve hands-on learning experience for working once they get a little bit older. The new Activities and Program Coordinator position is going to focus on revamping our programming and really using the rec center for all different types of classes and programs. The ultimate goal is to start an after-school program, as all of our childcare programs, which are camp and the vacation programs, do very well and fund most of what we do in recreation. So adding an after-school program will really benefit us. We decreased some large line item budgets like building grounds and maintenance from $80,000 to $65,000. Fiscal year 24 and 25 were big years for one-time expenses, like replacing doors at the amphitheater, repairing irrigation system at Concord Road, and major electrical replacements and repairs at the amphitheater at NARA and the picnic pavilion. We rearranged a few line items, like other expenditures, which were previously funded at $40K, and we decided not to fund this line item at all and add $5,000 to other supplies, increasing it to $55,000. These 2 line items have been used interchangeably throughout the years, but records show that we spend around $55,000 between the 2 line items, so doing this frees up another $35,000 for us to put towards that new position. With the changes in camp setup and operations and rearranging line items that are backing up by historical data and trends, I'm confident with proposing a level-funded budget for fiscal year 26. Thank you for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
I hesitate to ask, but why don't I, instead of using KPI, why don't I call it a TLA? Let's say it's a 3-letter acronym. So how do you've analyzed the data pretty well. What do those numbers tell you that you're likely to be successful going forward?
Well, we use a program called MyRec, so that is what we get all of our metrics from. And And we often can get a lot of calls for more childcare programs for younger children. So that's where we kind of, and we've filled up all these sessions, and now we need more. So what we're doing is rearranging to help fill that gap that we see that is a need. And then we have a lot of events, and it also tracks all of the metrics when we purchase tickets and stuff like that. So in this year, with our new person, he actually just started today. Today was his very first day. And we're working on more surveying and, reaching out to the community and trying to figure out what the community would like for different programs, whether it's fitness classes or sports classes or arts classes or drama, whatever it may be. So we're really, that's going to be the real new revamp for the programming part of our operations.
Thank you. So I listened to what you said about moving line items around based on trends, but is your presentation covering the celebrations as well, or somebody else coming up for that?
Well, celebrations is, we
Part of here, okay.
We do budget for celebrations.
So I
too.
noticed that there's almost a 42% decrease, and I'm just curious, for FY '26, and I'm just curious about what changes are being made. I realize that the first half of this calendar year is in FY '25, when our big 250 celebrations are going on, but that I anticipated to continue through next year for the 250th of July 4th, 1776. So what's going on there?
We rearranged some of the.
Yeah, so the 4th of July celebration would be funded through capital. That would be a proposed capital plan.
Yeah.
And you're right, where you observed that the FY '25 budget for celebrations was higher to coincide with the money allocated for the 250 committee, and that is ramping down in FY '26.
So my other question is, I noticed that the facility rental hours are going down, although the NARA beach memberships and daily passes are going up. And I know that you've, targeted that specifically in the community to try and attract more people to come to NARA. In terms of the facility rental, is maybe that decrease due to fees being out of alignment with other options in the area, or do you have any other insight?
I think it has to do with more people are renting. So we have a few different rental options, and I was really looking at this to try to figure out why this is happening. It looks like people are renting for longer blocks, because we used to do a lot of people would do 4 blocks and 4 blocks, and then we would be able to do 2 at the same time. So I was thinking that maybe it was probably because I would be able to get 4 rentals in that day, but it decreased to 2 rentals because they were doing longer blocks. So I feel like that might be the reason for that, but that's just me kind of looking at how the rentals were analyzed. So.
I just want to make sure that we aren't, setting our fees too high, driving people to other venues, or maybe if they're doing that, renting for a longer period, maybe we need to increase the fees
so we
can get some more revenue from those facilities.
Yeah, we are looking at the different expenses and what we're renting these out. We're working with the finance department about that. But the picnic pavilion, which is our main rental, which is the big pavilion at Narra Park, it's rented every single weekend from beginning of May to the end of October. And it looks like it's just one group each time now, rather than smaller periods of times to add more groups. So that's what I noticed for the trend.
Just to follow up on that, when a group rents for twice the time, do they pay twice the amount?
So there's not exactly. There are different there's a lot of different things that go into the price. So it's if they're an Acton resident, a non-resident, a full day or half day. But yes, the pricing is more, but like, we do like a deal that if you rent for more, it's not double the amount of price. So you're getting a deal. So we're trying to push for the full day rental. Does that make sense? Yep.
Hi, Melissa, thank you. I was happy to see that you guys were offering an after-school program. Has that started yet, or when does it start?
So yes, we're doing it for Wednesdays. We haven't had success yet, so it hasn't started. It is a outside vendor, so it's not us doing it, so, but there is a possibility that we could put it on too. But we do have a program that is Wednesdays, but we haven't had registrations for it.
Just getting the word out for something new is tough.
Is tough, yeah.
Yeah.
So all of our programs usually start slow, and then they build up.
Nice work, Melissa. Thanks.
I have to say, I really like the pictures.
Now a quick break, right? Is that what we said?
Sure. Yeah, that's fireworks. That's one of the many fields that were filled with people during the fireworks. This one. That's where the soccer fields are.
Come on back, Roland.
Okay, back in session. So thank you for those questions. We're going to continue on with the regularly scheduled program. And our next presentation will be from the library, the libraries. Up to make these presentations is Maria Palacio, the director of the libraries.
Said, I'm the director of the Acton Libraries. We have 2 libraries here in Acton. We're so lucky to have these 2 locations. One is right next door, and our community branch at the Citizens Library. So tonight, we'll be referencing information containing your budget book starting on page 124. But first, I'd like to introduce my assistant director.
Hello, my name is Carrie Darcy.
We are so proud to offer the Holy Celebration of Color 2 years in a row, in which we celebrate and highlight the culture of our Indian American community here in Acton. We applied for and won a $2,500 grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council to use for our 2025 Holy Celebration, which we expect it to be even bigger than last year. Another accomplishment that we are proud of on our website. Now we'll talk about on our website. Now we'll talk about goals.
I'm just going to mention 2 of our goals from the strategic plan. I'm just going to mention 2 of our goals from the strategic plan. The first is foster community, which we feel the library is positioned to serve the community as a gathering space that can expose patrons to a variety of cultures while helping them to grow their own individual communities. Additionally, one of our goals for the next 5 years is to serve as a third place.
After-school snack program where someone used the staff microwave to teach teens and middle schoolers how to make some easy snacks in a mug. So that was awesome. And I just saw that today, so I'm really proud of that kind of programming that we're doing. And now we'll talk about the budget. So in an effort to keep better track of our budget expenditures in certain areas, and in response to some of the questions we had from this group last year, we asked the finance department to separate out areas of our collection into categories such as periodicals, streaming databases, AV, museum passes, library of things, and more, and Munis. So that helps us track these expenses better and also helps make it easier for us to report to the state when we do our IRS, our state aid report. This concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Hi, Maria and Carrie. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm going to jump right on Greg's trend here and talk about how you are doing more with the same. I noticed the programs offered doubled from FY22 to FY24, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to point that out. That's amazing. I wanted to ask about how the advocacy for a legislative solution, to explain it because I won't do a good job. Can you just share what the issue is for everybody who's listening here in the room and also at home?
Sure. So Copyright laws have always protected libraries and allowed us to loan out books numerous times to patrons, helping to kind of eliminate some of the cost barriers to literacy and providing equal access to reading. Unfortunately,
Visit sort of points to that because our circulation numbers are close to pre-pandemic levels, but the number of physical visits is still lagging. And I've heard anecdotally from a lot of people that ever since the pandemic, they're not going into the library anymore. They're using Hoopla and ebooks and doing everything virtually so they don't have to enter the building any longer. So it's really critical that we can provide those digital resources, not at that inflated cost. Thanks. And I will add, Alyssa, that we did have one of our trustees from the Citizens Library attend a meeting on this topic at the state level last year. And there's also ways to help and support is by attending a legislative breakfast. There will be one for this area for the Minuteman Library Network. There's probably a couple right now. So I can send out the link of the list of legislative breakfasts if you're interested in attending.
I can dispense with my typical questions, and I'm going to go entirely countercultural. So I'm totally fascinated that you've focused on the third place and loneliness as a epidemic in the country and what we can do about it in Acton. That sounds really innovative. Can you elaborate?
Sure. When I got to the library 3 years ago almost, we had 2 study rooms that were in high demand. We've doubled that number since I got here. And then as you can see, the study room increased just by 1 additional room, went up by 23%. We are seeing that people are increasingly coming in to do work, to study, to do leisure reading. And we decided when going through our strategic planning process that because of the demand that we were seeing and also because we knew what was going on across the country and globally, that the library was sort of primed positionally to be able to serve that need and really bring attention to some of the struggles that maybe Acton residents are facing.
Hello. The personal services budget line is up 19% in 2 years. Do we see that leveling off? That 10% year on year is.
Are you aggregating the libraries or looking at just Memorial Library?
I am looking at page 129, personal services, taking the FY25 budget, the FY24 actuals, and that comes to 18.97% increase in 2 years. That seems double-digit, almost double-digit growth year over year.
Sorry, I didn't do the calculation as fast as you did. Did you say you're comparing actuals to what we're proposing?
FY26 proposed to FY24 actual.
Yeah, so I think that's partly because of vacancies. We mentioned the turnover that we've been working through. Actually, the library had a lot of vacancies a few years ago. We're in a stable spot right now. And so I think that's a large part of why the salary was not expended. And that was actually the year wasn't that the year that I told departments not to spend? In any event, it's much in fact due to vacancies.
Do you anticipate it staying steady?
If we're able to fully staff the library and not have people retire or leave, then this budget is what we'll need to do that next year.
Okay.
So on page 125 where they have the FTEs, is the FY24 FTEs, was that the actual or the budget for 24? Because it's 18, it's
Budget.
basically this, it's a budget?
Budget, yeah.
Okay. And then so my other question on that same topic is, if I guess the salaries for the regular perm and regular temporaries is going up, 6% and almost 10%, 6 and 9.7. And I'm wondering why the such a large increase when the number of FTEs is staying the same? Is it the mix of people, or is it, like, are their salaries going up by 6%?
Thanks for that question. I would say that we did have a children's librarian position, for example, that was a 20-hour benefited position. And we were able to cobble together with other positions that were not filled and create a 40-hour position. I think there's just been like some internal reorganization where we found the need. So working within roughly the same FTE amount, we've been able to provide a person for more service hours in the library to meet the need of the people that are there and our staffing needs. Thanks.
Hi. New associate, Alex Lenz. Thanks for the presentation. Comment and a question. First, the comment. I live around the corner. I've been going into the library for 20 years. Whenever I have guests that come visit for the first time, I take them to the little museum up front because it is one of the best examples of the history of everywhere around us. And it's right there at the back of the library, or well, the front of the library, actually. And that actually brings me to an off-the-wall question. I was down in Bryant Park a couple of weeks back in New York City, and I went to the library there because I love going to all the libraries. They have an archive that is like fine arts quality museum that they have overhead for, and it's huge. They've got millions and millions of pieces from old books to basically a history of the United States in there. Do we have archives like that at the library, part A? And part B, is there an overhead component to maintaining that with cost? Because old paper, you know.
We actually do have an archive here at the Acton Memorial Library. And it's funny you should say about the overhead. That's something that Carrie's working on right now, actually.
So yes, ideally, there would be someone on staff to manage that. We don't have an archivist, so we're kind of working within the constraints of that. But there are a number of archival items within the collection that have been curated, particularly under the reign of Wanda Null, who was director for 20-plus years. I could be undershooting that. But part of what we need to be addressing currently, and we're applying for a CPC grant, is for a preservation assessment. And that will help evaluate the state of our collections and then give us a guiding plan of what we need to do going forward. Because storage is an issue, and if those records aren't maintained, we don't want to lose them, so.
Right, you know, digitization, you know, and then all of everything. And I'm reminded is, because Alyssa was saying earlier about, you know, we got the 250th coming up, and that's kind of what triggered that for me, is that there, you know, a good history of the town is sitting in your library, so.
And I don't know if you know, but there's been like movies, like different production companies that have come like to take photos of some of the items that we have and some of the artifacts that we have. So Acton is kind of on the map historically for the screen. So thank you for that question, because that's like we just said, it's something that we're working on right now that we really want to preserve those records.
Looking forward to hearing more about it. It's
Yep.
super cool. Thank you.
I'm trying to, have I correctly figured out that you broke out network membership from MIS software? Because first I saw a big increase, and then I saw a big decrease, and I saw they were about the same. So I'm guessing that was a split of some sort.
Yeah, we wanted to really, because we have been, we upgraded the computers, and we got like a new wireless and printing solution, copy, scan, printing solution. And so because of, for whatever reason, a lot of these categories were lumped together, and only we knew internally what they meant and what to break out where. So by breaking out MIS from the membership to the network, we feel that we have a better, like a more accurate picture of where we're spending.
Thanks. And I know, I should have asked this like a week ago, so this might end up being a John or Tom question, but what do the cool different colors mean on the org chart?
That's a question for Mary Beth Zabek, who may know the answer, and I'm sure it's artistically, is it, what does it mean? Oh, here you go.
So we use an org chart application called Insperity Org Plus. And so the different colors can be used for executive levels, professional levels, clerical levels. And so it actually just comes as built. And you could customize it, but sometimes it costs money to customize. So we just go with the colors that they provide.
Okay. Got it, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, Kerry, and thank you, Ann, President of the Trustees, also for being here. And Kristen, our new office manager, Kristen Morrison. We are next going to hear from the Health and Human Services Department. This is a department that also was reorganized this year to better align its different components with the services that we're all working very hard to provide to the public. So it's led by Penny Funioli, but I think we're going to get the whole crew up here, right? Oh, no, you don't need that. Do you?
Why don't I take that?
Yeah.
I'll scoot. You guys.
No, I need it. I need it. I need one.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Good evening, Select Board members and Finance Committee members. It's my honor to come and speak on behalf of the Health and Human Services Department here for the town of Acton. My name is Penelope Funioli. I am the Director of Health and Family Services. I've been here for 10 months, so I'm real new. My first budget hearing, not my first observed budget hearing, though. I watched this last year during my interview process, so I'm not quite prepared, but I'm here for you to do that. I'm excited to share what I've learned about the Health and Human Services Department over the last 10 months. This is a new department for the town. And the health department itself is very fortunate because we're sitting in two different homes. We're sitting in the land use department where our operations of our inspectional services live and should live, along with the building department, the planning department, conservation. We talk to them all day, every day about the permits that we're putting out. So it's important that we're there. On the other side, we're over at 30 Sudbury. And in 30 Sudbury, we see people enjoying their time, meeting with our staff in a trusted and a confident sense of both what's exciting and fun, how do I eat, what about this thing that's going on with my body? Going down to the nursing service and getting support for that. So I've been very fortunate to witness both ends of this department on a weekly basis, on a daily basis sometimes. Within the Health and Human Services Department, we have 6 divisions. We have the Environmental Health Division, we have the Council on Aging, we have the Veteran Service Officer, we have our nursing service, Acton Nursing Service, our Community Resource Department, and now we have transportation living within Health and Human Services. With all of those divisions, we have on your book here on page 132 is where we begin. We have listed 17.58 FTEs, but that's 20 people. 20 people that are carrying out human services and connected services for individuals who are sometimes struggling. So of those FTEs, we have real people who really care and are very compassionate about the residents of our community. When we say health and family services, I just want to clarify what that means. That's where 3 of our departments are sort of under one umbrella. And that's the traditional community health, public health work that the state of Massachusetts is expecting the town of Acton to carry out. So that is the health department, inspectional services, environmental health, nursing, and our community resource office. This entire department was created to reorganize and to better address some of the needs that were going on in the town of Acton and still are. Some of those are mental health and well-being. How do we continue to raise the well-being of our individuals and help their mental health overall? To coordinate our social services and our connection to our community services and our elder services, our other services that the state mandates and puts out, but also our local community services like the AB Resource Center. We also were here to provide more support for public health. So we are doing that in a lot of different ways, and Matt's going to go over a number, and I'll scoop up if we miss anything. But then the other one is to address housing stability, which is a statewide issue. And we are very proud of some of the measures that we've put together, including legal clinics that began last week and will go on for the next year and a half. This is for anyone to come and ask questions and see how they can get counsel should they not have that for themselves. But again, what are we really doing? We're providing a trusted service to our community. We are providing answers to questions where, is this a trusted source that's called me? If an elder calls our front desk and says, I don't know what this is, we can say, let us help you look that up. Those are the kinds of trust that we're building within our community, with our staff. So within all of this too, we need to understand the community needs. We have a knowledge of what the community needs, but how deeply have we gone into it? So it's really important for us to make data-driven decisions in order to show long-term outcomes of change and impacts for our families, our residents, our homes, whatever that might be. We need to understand what the issues are. We will do that through a community health needs assessment that is going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks, really, just getting our ball rolling here. And when we come back with that whole process, we will then see what outcomes are necessary to change, what measures we will monitor to ensure that those are getting done, work to adjust if they're not working, because that's a critical component of our evaluation, and then continue to enhance this work as we're hearing more and more information. It usually grows bigger once you start getting in there. And the number one thing that we need to do is continue to build trust. So we may have trust with who speaks to us now, but who does not speak to us, and how can we continue to build that trust with them? So with all that said, we have a number of ways that we're getting to these outcomes or getting the work done here, right? We have the people that have to operate the work, but we also have to find the funding sometimes to make the thing happen. Sometimes you have to find funding to make a pilot something happen because no one's really sure that that's necessary. Right now in our department, we have a number of grants. We have grants that are Acton specific, like our Council on Aging's formula grant that is provided from the state. But we also have regional partnerships and grants, some that we're leading, some that we're a part of as a participant. And so one would be our dispatch center through transportation. That's a regional grant. That grant serves 3 towns, dispatch. That's one of those, and we are the lead for that. Whereas our shared service, our public health excellence grant, we are a part of that grant, and Westford is the lead on that. And Matt will go into details about that. There's a number of other components of grants that we have here that I won't go into explicitly, but we have them to talk about. So one of the things that happened when I came on board is we also said, okay, so what are we gonna do now? You have 6 operating departments, and now you have a health and human services division. So we looked at, Matt and I sat down and we looked at, it was pretty clear the other departments, what their roles were. It was a little bit muddier with the health department, my role, and how will that interface with the work. So what we decided was we tightened our inspectional services to be the environmental health office. So Matt is operationally managing all of the functions within that health department, the staff, and making sure that inspectional services are operating at the state's expectations and our expectations in the town of Acton. With that, there are a slew of other components of public health that still need to be addressed. Many of those things are happening in these other divisions. So it's my responsibility to look at community health and how do I help to create and paint and fill in this picture across these 6 departments, weaving together the Human Health and Services Department. So right now, with that, I'm going to step back and let Matt take over and talk about our inspectional services, and thank you.
Thank you, Penny. It's tough following Penny when she gets going like that, so thank you, Penny.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Dow. I have been with the town for 9 years. I was just promoted from interim health director to the environmental health director about 6 months ago. At this time, there are 2 full-time employees, including myself, 2 part-time admins. Penny mentioned the Public Health Coalition. We are part of the Northwest Public Health Coalition, which through grant funding has provided the division a part-time inspector to help with inspections 1 to 2 days a week. In July, the health division lost a full-time inspector, but during that time, we worked closely with consulting firms to make sure all inspections were completed, public health and the environment were protected. The health division's budget starts on page 135, with actual budget details on page 137. The enterprise and revolving budgets begin on page 166. The health division has general oversight over health operations, including food, septic, camps, housing, pools, body art, body works, freshwater beaches, emergency preparedness, hazardous materials, and sealer of weights and measures. The health division is responsible for 5 budgets, 1 general fund, 1 enterprise, and 3 revolving account budgets. All proposed budgets have been level funded with the exception of position control. As you can see from the performance metrics on page 136 for fiscal year 24, some of the permit numbers we have issued have increased from the prior year. For example, the septage metrics are up from last year. This is due to the letter that we sent out reminding people to pump their septic system every 2 years. I would also like to draw your attention to the hazardous waste day line. Each hazardous waste day event that we run costs the town between $13,000 and $15,000 per event. There is money set aside in that account for contingencies that people may bring in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. So next I'd like to bring up, thank you. So next I'd like to bring up Sharon Mercurio. She runs our Council on Aging. One of the key things while she's come up here that I noticed is that she's running a restaurant, a physical fitness center, an enrichment program. She's running a helping component, supporting people who don't know how to find the money that they might need to survive. So she's doing a whole lot with a small budget. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Good evening. First of all, I would not be able to do half of what I do without the incredible staff I have. So Beverly Hutchings is our Senior Service Coordinator. Chris Chirokis is our Program Manager. Rosie Atherton is our Office Manager. Bernice Nichols, our Activity Assistant. Fiona Starr and Wendy Curtis are our Customer Service Coordinators. Terry Zaborowski is our Fitness Instructor. And even though technically she's not part of our budget, she's an honorary member of the COA, Rosie Murphy. Collectively, we've put in over 103 years of service to the town of Acton. For the first year that we've worked under Penny Funioli, which has been really helpful, not only has she been a strong advocate for the COA, but for all of us in human services and is really helping us collaborate effectively with other departments. At this time, there's over 5,800 60-plus residents in town. The COA is really best known for the senior center and the amazing programs that we offer there. We have lifelong learning, fitness classes, lectures, art classes. We serve lots of meals, great way to kind of have that normal socialization. And we provide a lot of social services for our Acton residents. I feel our data is represented really well in the budget book, and if you look at our newsletter, but what I wanted to touch on is kind of those things that you can't measure, and that's that sense of community that we have at the senior center. The bonds that are formed there, it really is a home away from home for so many people, I think, turning 60 and retiring and losing spouses and having children grow up, it's really hard for other people to relate to. So this group of individuals really have each other to support. And I just wanted to share a couple of stories. We had a gentleman that would occasionally come in begrudgingly with his wife, who then passed away very unexpectedly. His wife did. He's now a regular there. He comes for lunch. He's got a great group of friends. He's an unsung ambassador. He's in the lounge greeting people, helping newcomers. Just a fabulous gentleman. Another friendship formed between a very unlikely pair. They both had a love for books. And as she slowly began to lose her vision, they'd find a quiet corner and he would read to her. And when she was no longer able to come to the senior center, he would call her on the phone and read to her over the phone. These kind of things you can't measure. That's what happens there. And it's a nice way to build those relationships and that trust, not only with each other, but with the staff. I think it's really hard for anybody to ask for help. But the more they get to know us, the more comfortable they are with us, the more willing they are to share and to ask for help. So that's a big part of what we do. One of our accomplishments this year, thanks to the ARPA funding, was our Bistro 30. Again, a wonderful way to bring people together, to bring that sense of community. What it is, it's kind of a built-in restaurant. We have a gentleman that comes in and cooks. He has a different menu each week. People can order what they want. I'm a picky eater, so I can say I want this, but without that, more of that. It's open to everybody in the community, and we're working on it being self-sustaining now that the APRA fund is out. We get our funding, one, from our Friends group. We have a wonderful supportive Friends group that help fund programs and lectures for our seniors. They really feel strongly that they would like things to be free of charge for the residents. They feel taxes are expensive. Their income's not going up, so this is something that they help us with. Over $25,000 a year they put towards our programming. We also receive a state formula grant that funds 2 of my employees. It also funds some ongoing classes, programs, special events. We have a monthly memory cafe. We do a birthday party for everybody 90 and older. That's a great time. Our volunteer lunch, and then it helps offset some of the costs for our other expenses. The majority of the COA budget consists of salaries per position control. Very little has changed in our budget this year due to the direction of being a level service budget. We did add a new line item for program event supplies, just to more accurately depict our spending instead of having everything under other supplies. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Next, we'll have our Veteran Service Officer for Acton Boxborough, District Director of Veteran Services for Acton and Boxborough, James McCray.
Thank you. Thank you, Penny. Yes, so again, my name is James McCray. I'm the Veteran Service Officer for Acton and Boxborough. I've worked for the town of Acton for over 13 years. And my whole job is essentially to assist veterans and surviving spouses with state and federal veterans benefits. Try and troubleshoot smaller issues at times, finding respective nonprofits that may be able to assist, or even non-veteran related possibilities, resources that may benefit veterans or surviving spouses depending on their need. Some of this assistance includes finding missing or lost discharge papers, the DD-214. That's the proof that you want for any state or federal veterans benefit. Assistance navigating the VA healthcare system. I opted out of what the town offered me 13 years ago, and I've been using the Bedford VA ever since. I also assist with service-connected disability claims. Any disabilities that were a result, physical disabilities that were a result of military service, hearing loss and tinnitus claims for veterans who served in jobs that were even moderately related to loud noise exposure, and of course, presumptive conditions from veterans who served in Vietnam, presumptive conditions from exposure to Agent Orange, the herbicide that was used over there. There's a list of cancers and other ailments that are directly correlated with service in Vietnam. And thanks to the PACT Act that passed 2 years ago, it opened up the presumptive locations to include other locations where people served during those timeframes: Thailand, Laos, Guam, and other locations like that. My budget starts on page 143, detailing services, goals, and challenges, with my actual budget on page 144. So, if you look on page 144 at the bottom, the last line item, veterans benefits. So that's actually, we should relabel that. It's called Chapter 115 assistance. And Massachusetts is the only state in the country that by state law, there must be a veteran service officer for every single town to assist veterans and surviving spouses. And this is the primary duty, is to assist with Chapter 115 assistance. So I currently have 12 people on the rolls who receive a monthly benefit in Acton, veterans and surviving spouses, whose income is less than $2,510 a month, and assets, not including your primary home, personal belongings, does not exceed $8,600. I'm at the very least able to reimburse monthly medical costs if you're at the upper end of that income threshold. So that's where that's where this money line item comes from. And it's important to note that 75% of that line item is reimbursed by the state. I also assist, I oversee Veterans Day and Memorial Day parade and ceremonies as well as other smaller ceremonies periodically as needed, including flag retirement ceremonies and such. And thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And just to also just harp on the point that the state was very smart in making sure that a veterans service officer was a veteran, because you're going to trust someone who knows what you've done, right? So thank you, Jim, for your service. Thank you for your time here in Acton and the things you do. Next, I'd like to call up our Acton Nursing Service Director, Heather York. In the Acton Nursing Service, what I've seen is a lot of care that happens in the office, not just in homes. People coming in and, again, asking for reassurance about medical issues, recommendations, but also our podiatry clinic, which is, if you don't know, foot health is really important as you age. So this is one of the most amazing services that's provided, in addition to all the other programs that she's going to talk about.
Thank you, Penny. Hi, good evening. I'm Heather York. For those of you who don't know me, I have been with the town for just over 20 years. So I'm the director of the nursing department. Our budgets start on page 45. So we have two budgets. One is the VNA, or the Visiting Nursing Service budget, 01522 on page 147. This budget is for our Medicare certified home health agency. So this is for our home-based visits based on doctors' referrals, for skilled nursing, physical, occupational, speech therapies, as well as certified home health aid services to the town of Acton, obviously, and contiguous towns. The other budget is our public health budget, 01520 on page 148. This is our budget that we use for public health outreach, disease surveillance, health discussions, clinics such as Penny talked about, our podiatry clinic, blood pressure clinics, and wellness visits for those in the community who are identified as at risk. In those two budgets, we have 5.4 FTEs. Myself, the clinical manager, Kathy Flannery, our admin, who's also a certified home health aide, are shared between the VNA and the public health budget. So 60% or 66% of myself and Kathy are in the VNA budget, and then the other 34% are in the public health budget. So we're shared between those. Also in the VNA budget is another certified home health aide, Kathy Breest, and our nurse case manager, Elizabeth McNamara. And then in our public health budget, we have one, other than myself, Kathy, and the admin, we have a public health nurse, who that position has been open and vacant since the beginning of FY '23. So the VNA budget, again, starts on page 147, and is level funded. The most notable change that you will see is that $7,000 was moved from the overtime and other wages line items to our on-call item. This is for two reasons. One is that we have to, regulatory-wise, have an on-call nurse for any of the hours that were not open for the VNA timeframe. So after hours, 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, and then through the weekend. The second is, we've historically gone over this line item because we do pay the staff, but it's also not a competitive rate as other home health agencies are. So we've moved that $7,000 into that line item to increase that rate, so we could hopefully get some good qualified per diem nurses to assist with our weekend hours. We've been without per diem staff. That's our as-needed staff for weekends. During the week, if there's overflow visits that our nurse case manager can cover in a day. We've been without those folks since just after the beginning of the pandemic. So we're down 3 positions. One of those positions was cut in last year's budget, as well as a certified home health aide. The metrics are on page 146. You'll notice that we do our typical visits for each of our staff members, but we did add a admissions bar this time because admissions is a bigger indicator of revenue than visits. There's other metrics that go along with that based on your insurance company, if you're Medicare as opposed to HMO or a PPO, as those pay per visit, where Medicare pays over it's an algorithm that they use based on diagnosis, where you live, what you have for other comorbidities, et cetera. And then another metric that we use that is publicly available and can be found on the Medicare Home Health Compare website. That's one of our quality indicators as a home health agency, is how we compare to other agencies within the state. So we are rated at a 3 out of 5 stars at this point, which is consistent with the national and state average for Medicare reporting. Patient satisfaction is also found on that website, and I'm happy to say that over the last 20 years that I've been here, we've always rated well beyond the national and state average. The national and state average are typically about 85% for how patients rate the overall care from a home health agency, and we rate at 96%. Which is wonderful, and that's a kudos to our staff, as well as patients who would recommend the agency to other residents. We're also 96%, where the national average is 79% and the state average is 78%. So that's really just kudos to my staff for really doing a great job, and for people realizing what a great job they do. Our public health budget is on page 148, and that's also level funded. The only notable change that you'll see in that budget is the shifting of money from the medical supply line to the professional services line. As we've seen after COVID, flu clinics have really diminished within the town. We really didn't have the need as we had years ago. People got comfortable with going to their doctor or, more importantly, to a pharmacy. So that we did stop flu clinics this year just because we didn't feel there was a need. We did partner with Acton Pharmacy. They came in and did a clinic at the Human Service and Senior Center, and we allotted enough time for about 100 doses, and we got 16 people. So that just shows that it's really not something that people are doing as much anymore. So we're shifting that money so that we can do more programmings within the Human Service and Senior Center building. Just a really nice accomplishment and a compliment to the previous health director, We love Penny, but we love the previous health director, Cheryl Ball, also. She had started a senior stroll at Narra Park through a grant program with, working with the COA and then the COAs in the town of Littleton and Boxborough. Folks would meet at Narra Park on a Friday, morning, walk around, have a conversation, coffee, Danish. It was more about socialization than about exercise. It's for those folks in the community who are isolated, really bringing people in. So Cheryl had requested, and a few residents, mainly because a few residents requested a continuation after she retired, so we picked that up, and we started that in the fall of FY24 with a small following, because it was sort of late in the year. It was cool. People don't really want to walk when it's, gotten really brisk out. But in the spring of '24, we had a higher attendance, which is, again, shown on the metrics on page 146. Over a 5-week period, we had 54 participants, which was great. We continued into the summer and the fall, so the end of FY24 into FY25, and that we had 144 participants over 10 weeks. So we felt that was a really good indicator that we should continue it, and we're looking to do that next year. People were a little disappointed that we didn't continue into the fall. Maybe next year we'll think about doing that. And again, more about socialization than about exercise, just really getting people together. And as Sharon talked about, gosh, I lost my train of thought. As Sharon was talking about how people make these nice, oh my gosh. Friendships, thank you, Penny. That's really, we saw that a lot across towns too, between Acton, Boxborough, and Littleton, so it really was nice to see. Other well-attended classes include our quarterly balanced 6-week Balance Matters class. That's funded by our Friends of the Acton Nursing Service. Also, our Balance Maintenance class, which is funded by an anonymous donor. When we started our Balance Matters class with our physical therapists, we had a really good following. Through COVID, we were outside, under tents, doing balance exercises. As people ended that class, they really wanted to continue, so a resident who had taken the class stepped forward and offered to help pay for these maintenance classes. So we do 2 classes every week, continuously throughout the year. It's really well attended. Also, our therapeutic horticulture class, and our podiatry visits are booked within 48 hours of the COA newsletter coming out to give the date. So we're doing, I think we're doing really good work and getting people into, our programming. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And that horticultural class is a hot ticket. People are leaving with really cool designs and stuff. But overall, it's really helping the mental health. And the connectivity that people are feeling to one another is really critical for our mental health. So rolling forward, we have 2 more departments to talk about. We have our Community Resource Department and our Transportation Department. Both are being led by Laura Ducharme, our Community Services Coordinator.
Good evening. My name is Laura Ducharme, and I've been with the town for 16 years, and I oversee the Community Services Office. My position was established in 2009 to provide comprehensive case management services to residents. These residents are primarily under the age of 60, but we do work with 16 over at times in my office. This is kind of a one-person office, but there is a lot of collaboration with other town departments and outside agencies, so we're working together all the time. And on page 150 of the budget book, it starts my section, but I do not have a line item in the budget book except for my salary. Funds to assist residents come from community donations and government funding such as CARES and ARPA. Primarily, my office provides needs-based services. People will come to my office for things such as applying for support to public benefit programs, referrals for assistance to local nonprofits, programs such as fuel assistance, which could be government and also local funding, and emergency assistance programs to support needs such as rent, utilities, childcare, and mortgage. In FY '24, we had some of my office responsibilities were doing a back-to-school drive, holiday gift drive for families in the community. This past fall, we transitioned those tasks over to the AB Resource Center. So now they will be the main leads on those types of projects with support from my office. And if some of you aren't aware, the AB Resource Center is a collaborative effort between the Acton-Boxborough Schools and the Acton-Boxborough United Way. They provide clothing and other items to all residents who wish to go there. We finished a very successful run with the ARPA funding, and I want to thank the board and the town manager for providing these funds to help the residents. We administered $150,000 in emergency assistance grants and $80,000 in childcare subsidies through these ARPA funds. In FY '26, we are embarking on a new initiative, again with ARPA funds, to subcontract with Metro West Legal Services in Framingham to provide tenant support services. These clinics will be held at the Human Services Center on the second Tuesday of each month from 4 to 6 p.m. through December 31st of 2026. And we've already had about five people? Yeah, people are calling, so we're looking to get the word out, and we'll be doing that in the coming weeks. Some changes and ongoing challenges my office has encountered is a lot of what I do, actually all that I do, is from either charitable resources, from community groups, clergy, churches, individuals, but there has been a marked decrease in charitable resources within the community, despite the growing need for assistance. If you look on the little table chart, you can see some of the assistance categories that we have provided help with since FY '21. And in 2021 was COVID, and there definitely was a surge in giving. The United Way had received a lot of gifts, and we were able to give a lot of grants through CARES Act and also through United Way and other donations. So that year we had $346,000 of assistance paid out to residents, not to residents directly, but to their landlords, to the utility companies, to their childcare programs. And as the years have gone on, it's shrinking, and this upcoming year it will be even smaller. However, these programs have helped shape that, we do have a population that could benefit or, has been greatly supported through these programs. Most of the programs we have was 65% of the area median income. So for a family of 4, that's about $104,000. So our guidelines were generous, and we were able to help a lot of different families, and families who may otherwise not have received help from a state program. So we did a lot of good work for lots of different income brackets within the community. So that is a little bit about community services, and then it kind of leads into transportation, which is also another needed resource to many of the residents who visit my office, the senior center, and all the other human services departments in town. This department moved to Health and Human Services in the fall of 2024, and there's information on page 151 of the budget book. So this is new. This is new to myself. It's new to Penny. But we felt that it was a good fit for us to have transportation in our building because we know probably 80% of the people who might use the service, or 75%. So, we're in either contact with them on a regular basis, or they know of us, and, we're familiar with who usually uses the transportation service. Challenges of this program is operational costs are outpacing available funding. It is very expensive to move people around, and I did not realize that until I started doing this type of work. And the grants from the state level have become more competitive. There is some grants that have matches to them, and that sometimes dissuades others for applying, but there's a lot of money right now from the millionaire tax or the fair share tax, and the DOT is offering grants without shares. So the state money is a little bit different than the federal money. So they're expecting more people to apply for this money because there's not a share part of it. So they can apply for the full funding of whatever they're looking for transportation. And also, the needs of our ridership extends beyond the existing on-demand and fixed route services. And we were able to have a grant with Sudbury through Mass Development that ended in October of 2024, and we were able to provide 1,492 rides through that grant. And these rides typically ran at the times when our buses didn't operate, which was nights and weekends, but it also could take people to other places during the day that the vans wouldn't be able to get to, such as hospitals in Boston. And to kind of give everyone an idea of the last 3 months of what the trips look like on the van, certainly busy. We're not at pre-COVID levels yet, but we are halfway there, if not growing. In the month of October, we did 1,518 rides. And the month of, so these, what I'm reading to you right now may not be in the budget book. They're on spreadsheets that get sent to us from the vendor we use. In November of 2024, we did 1,223 rides, and in December of 2024, 1,111 rides. Big rides as a COA in the CAT shuttle. COA in October did 515 trips to the COA. The CAT shuttle did 417 trips in a month. And the Roadrunner and the Minutevan are doing about 300, between 200 and 300 trips, but the main busy vans are the fixed route shuttle and the COA van. And of all those months, all those rides, we were only unable to successfully fulfill 6 of those rides. So I think that's pretty good. We went to the dispatch center in Woburn last week. We were able to see what goes on, and what's on the other side of people that we've talked to for many years but never knew what they looked like or anything. So that was a nice experience, and Acton is full. They showed me their schedules, and it's like blocked up every day. So they are doing their job, and they're getting as many people on the vans as they are able to. And just for a fun fact, the top 5 destinations of the CAT tend to be in different orders, but they tend to be Acton Plaza, Great Road Condominiums, the MBTA Commuter Rail, Avalon, and Town Hall. So that's where people mostly are gravitating to on the shuttle. Approximately 35 to 40% of our riders are eligible for ADA paratransit services, and that's very important to know that. All of our vans are accessible. However, if for some reason our fixed route shuttle was not accessible, we'd have to provide complimentary paratransit services. We're in a different position because we have 4 accessible vans, but we still have to account for those individuals and keep track of them and make sure that they're getting the services that they need. And the most rides to medical appointments and social events make up 77% of the scheduled rides. So people are going to the doctors and going to the Council on Aging or someplace else. Let's see. Accomplishments. We did secure a grant funded, we just got it in December, all-electric transportation vehicle from the Lowell Regional Transit Authority. This is the first of its kind deployed by the LRTA, and we're having a rep from LRTA come out on Monday, the 27th, to train the staff on how to use the vehicle, and then we hope to get it on the road in February. And this will also positively contribute towards the town's climate goals. We also launched and concluded the taxi program that we mentioned. This was available free of charge, and it was very successful and very popular. Residents were sad when we had to close the funding on that. And looking forward for the upcoming year, I've been here for 16 years, I don't think we've really ever had an active outreach campaign for the van or any of the transportation services that we have in the town. I don't believe so. So part of Penny and I's goals would be to improve the outreach of the transportation services, and especially to populations with limited English proficiency, to create the outreach materials in English and other languages, and expand beyond traditional outreach methods to extend to venues such as minority-owned stores or markets, libraries, community festivals, and other community-based organizations. So that is a little bit about transportation. And another thing that we will be doing is a mobility management study, and that will be happening in the coming weeks. And this is also a grant from Mass DOT, and we're hoping to develop a strategic plan for the transportation program moving forward. And also, part of our funding requires us to develop a formalized participation plan for engagement with the public around transportation services and needs. So there's a lot that we have to get done. And, the federal funding requires a lot more of this kind of stuff. So these are things that we're all working on to get caught up on, so. That's all.
Thank you very much. So that concludes all of our presentations, and we can all come up and answer your questions, whatever that might be, and how you'd like to do that. This one, maybe like pull some chairs up or something.
My question is for Laura. So just in your little performance metrics for specifically childcare, I know that we were graced with like ARPA money at some point. And we have allotted 40,000 for 2024. How is that used? What is it used? And how quickly does it disappear?
So $40,000, the way I broke it down to kind of be fair was about 14 families could receive $3,000 subsidies. However, some families didn't need that much, so there might be families that only needed school vacations covered. So there might have been like a couple other families that had smaller amounts. But how it works, we're able to work with the childcare programs in the school department in the community. And what usually happens is if a child is approved, they bill my office every month with an attendance sheet. And we then pay, if it's $400 for the month, we will make an invoice and pay that. We don't pay the $3,000 at once.
Right.
We don't pay the $3,000 directly to the family. It gets billed by the month from the daycare center. So we're working with the local daycare centers, and we really had no problems with that method. I mean, we've been doing it for quite a few years now, so they're all pretty comfortable with it. So what that can be used for a lot of different things. It's a small amount, and childcare is very expensive. I think Middlesex County and Norfolk County are like the third and fourth highest, like in the nation, under the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Like, it's very expensive. It's like thousands of dollars to put a baby in daycare. It's just astronomical how much it costs. So it doesn't always work for that person who might have an infant. That might not really be an amount that's gonna be like, oh, I mean, they could break it down $300 a month or something. They could do that, but it works best for the after-school kids. And it works best for the kids who are in preschool that might only go 3 or 4 hours a day and come home. That type of childcare arrangement, I've seen the best stretch of that. Like, families could have their after-school covered for the whole year.
Okay.
Or they could have only their Wednesdays covered because they don't have anybody to watch their children on the half a day.
Yeah.
So to me, that stretches it the most bang for the buck for the families, but they can use it for a traditional daycare, and they can do that as well. And how fast will it be gone? It will be gone by September. We'll have the money will run throughout the year, but the slots will be filled. I'm pretty sure by school. People call all the time. And some of our work, we don't have programs that will take vouchers. We don't have programs that have scholarships. So it's hard. It's hard for families. It really is hard for them. And when they get their new apartment or they move to their new housing through the housing authority and they come into the community, it's like, oh, I can't work. I can't, so it's really, unfortunately, it's mismatched. We need to be talking to our childcare providers, to our medical homes, and accepting Mass Health, and accepting childcare vouchers, and bringing more of these supportive services to, whether it's to Acton or around us, so that people can get to where they need to go. And they're not just having to drive to their former hometown, and they don't have a car, and they can't get to, I don't know, it's just a lot of things that go on.
I know.
And I'd like to add to that, because I mean, I think it's important that we get people relief now so that they can live their lives and everybody can stay a baseline of mentally well, right? And when you're financially in a hardship or struggling, it really puts you on your back heels. But what also needs to happen in this regard, which we will see come out of a community health needs assessment, that a lot more organization needs to happen at the organizational level around healthcare, access to healthcare, access to childcare. Why is it not working well in this area? What needs to be done? Who needs to know about it? Who needs to advocate for it? All of that takes a lot of work and a lot of really good facilitation, which I absolutely plan to do for you here in this town. However, it's going to take a lot of work to not just help people immediately financially. And that, again, requires humans to do that.
And families can work, and the kids have enrichment. But it can be the difference between, someone needing more government assistance or more community charitable assistance if they're working. It may not always, but it most likely would lessen that need to rely on other services if they're working a 40-hour-a-week job.
Thanks. You mentioned that charitable donations were down. Is there a list someplace where if someone is interested in donating, they can find out the various funds they can donate to? And
Yeah, we can make one, yeah.
where can they find that?
I have to make that and mail it and send it to you. I don't have one on the website. I don't.
So yeah, if you make it, we can announce it at a select board meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Couple of quick ones. One for James. Is the veteran service, you don't even have to sit down. Is the veteran service budget the whole thing, or is that net of what we charge Boxborough?
So I've been working for the town of Acton for 34 hours a week from the beginning. And when we came together with Boxborough, essentially all we did was add 4 more hours to my work week. And then we negotiated a few other parts, about 10% of most of the line items were covered by Boxborough, a couple hours of reception time at the senior center and so forth, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the second one's for Heather, of course. How are you, Heather?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
So I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked you for about 15 years. What's the nursing revenue number for 24 actual or this year's budget?
Sure. FY '24 was 165. Right now, we're at 117 at the end of December.
Okay.
In receipts.
It's been long enough. I don't think I'll ask you that question again next year.
Thanks.
I am not going to ask you any questions about KPIs, partly because I'm a member of the senior center, and every time I check in, there's a barcode, and they not only know that I'm there in case I die, so they could call my wife, but they also know what I'm attending. So you guys have got data upon data upon data, so I'm not even going to mess with that one. What I am going to say, though, is that all of you are on the front line of some really significant changes in this community. You're sort of the canaries in the coal mine. Okay, that may not be a good metaphor, but let's put it this way. You're seeing the shift. You're seeing the people who are in need. You are seeing the people who are lonely. You are seeing people who are isolated. You are seeing an emerging demand for transportation, senior services, veterans. I was surprised to discover that we have a higher percentage of veterans in Acton than other towns in Middlesex County. So you guys see it first. So as you go forward with your assessment of strategic plans and whatnot, help me understand how you get your arms around what is really a big, big series of interrelated issues.
That's a great question. We're going to do that by including a lot of people to help us get to the priorities. There are standards that will not change. We are mandated in many of our departments by state and federal mandates, including our professional development, our skill set, how we manage our money, how we monitor our work. So that all will continue to be stable, but we'll be looking at, what can we do with what we have? If we only have, so let me also say this. We will find through this community needs assessment parts that need to be fixed that we don't have money for. And there will be no funding to then address that situation. So then we'll have to get creative and we'll look at ways that we can do the low-hanging fruit method, figure out small moves that could have a bigger impact. What's our tipping points and seeds we can plant in different areas. And when that funding source comes in, we're gonna be real fast and we're gonna get that money. But we don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know what the intentions of the federal government are for health and human services, so I can't guarantee anything. I can tell you in my 15 years, I've done a really good job of that working for municipality, but I can't guarantee what's gonna come next, but I know that these people, we're all prepared to do what needs to be done for the residents here.
Well, we have a hell of a team, so I'm optimistic that you guys could do it. Let me then share one other anecdote. I covered the birthday party at the senior center for people who were 90 plus. I was stunned at the large number. And in just talking with, I'm not 90 plus, by the way. I'm old, but I'm not that old. One of the things that struck me is that 45 years ago, people would, when they retired, sell their home in Acton and move to Florida. You almost never hear about that anymore. People who have lived in Acton love staying in Acton. I asked one 90-year-old woman, have you lived here all your life? And she said, not yet. So they like staying in the community. So to what extent are we dealing with a shift in expectations when people get older?
Well, that's a great question. I think I may not be the best person to start the answer, but I'm gonna try. One of the things that we're looking at, and I know that, so one thing that's really cool about the Council on Aging is that Sharon runs a team. She's not telling anybody what to do. They're all working together. They're looking at what's going on. They're listening to the residents, and they're communicating weekly about how to innovate their programming and how to keep on being up on that. And that will continue to happen as our boomers are getting more comfortable with the idea of coming together and hanging out, regardless of what we call it. And senior center are just a place to hang out. So I think that's one consideration. We're looking at the shifts in who's aging and what do they need and what are they looking at. But all the while, making that place a community where you can come and just sit next to someone and read a book. And that, you can see that when you walk in. So anybody can observe that. But I don't know if Heather and Sharon want to also answer.
So Sharon and I are starting to work on some mutual aging in place programs. So, as you know, people are staying put in Acton. So we need to be aware of what they need to age in place. Is it cheaper to stay in your home than it is to live in a nursing home? Yeah, it really is. If you can get adjunct staff, if you can get people to come in and check on you, if you can get adaptive equipment, if you can get, modifications to your home. But then there's the support services of everybody in this group, between the COA, community services, veterans, myself, health department. That's what we're here for. We're here to help people brainstorm, how do we stay in our house? How do we stay safe? And how do we find those services to do that?
I kind of have a bunch too. Heather, you probably already said it. What's the difference between Acton Nursing Services and the public health?
The public
is it
health budget, sure.
nursing?
The VNA budget is our home health agency, so that is an agency that we are one of the last two within the state that do home health services within the community. We've been a certified home health agency since 1966. And then the public health budget is for the things that are mandated through the state. Every town does a certain amount of public health outreach in the community. Some of the required things are disease surveillance, so outbreaks in the community, what we did during COVID with all the disease tracking and tracing, contact tracing. So disease process in the community, those are things that we have to follow. And then some of the other things that we do are wellness visits, community outreach, programming. When the select board set a goal for mental health programming in the town, because of the mental health crisis, we started doing some additional programming that we hadn't done before, like our horticultural therapy. We have a registered horticultural therapist who comes in 3 times a month, works with seniors to do a variety of different plantings, artificial arrangements. It's about, their mental health, doing that piece.
You said the Acton Nursing Service is one of only 2 such agencies in the state?
Correct. The other town is Stoughton.
Okay. So you mentioned an example, like older people trying to figure out how to stay in their home. They're going to call you no matter what, but which service would that be under?
It could be either. I mean, it could be someone that's under service after a hospitalization because they fell at home or they keep falling at home. And there's ways that we, our staff can assess to see what the needs are, what the problems are within the house that maybe is making them fall. So that could be when we've been asked to come in for the doctor's office because they've had an injury. Or a change of status, or it could be under the public health department. We're starting to work with police and fire as well as the COA for, outreach, more outreach when someone, as an example, has, 3 or 4 falls. Why are they falling? Give us a call, let us go in, let us do an assessment with our therapists or our nurses, just to see what we can do to help. What recommendations we can make, what resources we can give you for assistance in your home. So it can be either or.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I have a
Thank
particular
you.
thing in my head right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Laura, I wanted to ask you, in your budget that doesn't have that funding anymore, that funding source?
The 2 programs that come to mind from this group would be the cafe, was an ARPA-funded program that we're going to hope to sustain through a revolving fund and going forward, and then the childcare, which we've proposed as part of a new subsidy program in the capital budget that would provide a subsidy for transfer station stickers and for childcare.
Okay, thanks. And then for transportation, I see, Crosstown Connect, are there, it says is Cross Action Transit the same thing as Crosstown Connect? That's when somebody referred to it in an email that way. Okay.
The CAT is the
Sorry. The CAT is the program underneath Crosstown Connect. So it's its own van.
And are there any changes being made to that program? Okay.
And what do you mean, what kind of changes are you specifically?
Okay, so I have somebody who's reached out to me a couple times, and I think she sent these emails to the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen, but she says, Crosstown Connect is her only mode of transportation to get to doctor's appointments, the food pantry. She's like really asking me to advocate for it to maintain this program.
Yes, and we plan to,
And she says she's speaking on behalf of other people, and I believe her.
and I thank her.
Okay.
Yep. It's
Just wanted to
helpful.
put that out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be operating all 4 of the vans.
Thank you.
Let's see, a few. First, I think is for Matt. So Town meeting and the select board gave you some extra work over the last couple of years because of the plastic bag ban and then the styrofoam ban. So I wanted to find out first, how's compliance going with those? And second, now that you've been doing this for a while, what have you noticed about how much extra staff time this takes, if any?
That's a good question, Jim. Thank you. It's going well. I haven't received any complaints in probably 10 months or so, and that's actually a good thing, because usually people call in and say, I know they're using a certain bag, they're using a certain package down there, you need to go down there. When I do go down to the establishments, people are open to it. The owners, the managers, they're open to the changes, so it's gone well. It's gone well.
You're currently being driven by complaints, so it's not, there's not like an extra cost of time of regular inspections.
No,
it's great.
it's complaint.
Great, okay. Thanks. And that's also true with the all the styrofoam issues?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Transportation. So I'm the liaison both to the Commission on Disabilities and to the Transportation Advisory Committee, so lots of conversation about transportation. I think the only particular piece I wanted to pass on, because I think you've identified all the issues exactly right, that there's a lot of transportation needs that aren't being met, is that the members of the Transportation Advisory Committee, which is now finally, fully staffed up, would be happy to help out, for example, with, grant applications or, any sort of tasks that would help in, in increasing the scope of the programs. We're missing as the commuter traffic is getting back up to pre-pandemic levels. People are really missing the shuttle to the train, and of course you've mentioned the after hours and farther distance transportation. So, just wanted to make sure you knew that they were available. Yeah. The only one I can remember was really just a note to John, which is, I was going to ask you earlier about, the number of direct reports you have seems extraordinarily too large. Maybe it's just a little bit too large, but that this reorg in particular has really helped. So I wanted to thank you for coming on board, and I wanted to thank, the team for having the wisdom to hire her and to reorg this way, so that you have, a whole bunch of important interrelated departments, reporting to a new director rather than all having to report to you. So good work.
Thank you for the support.
Oh, I have something. Oh, we can clap twice. So I just want to thank every single one of you for your presentations, and I don't want to, leave all of the other departments out in the cold, but all of the work that you do makes, I'm so proud of it. It makes living in Acton worthwhile because you are meeting so many community needs, so thank you. We talk about distinguishing between needs and wants. And I know that, you are meeting needs, like the woman that Corinne just mentioned, who needs transportation in order to live in this community. So that is a need, even though it might not be something that is available in every town. So I definitely support the work that you're doing, and the budget that we put together reflects the values of the community. And I just wanted to mention, there's been a lot of questions about the childcare subsidy, and the fact that ARPA money is gone now. So is this something that we want to continue providing? And I think of childcare support because of the way the childcare environment is in the community and in the surrounding communities, because people definitely have to leave Acton to find childcare providers. it is a need in order for many folks to be able to work. And actually, Senator Eldridge put a panel together some months ago with an Acton resident, Jeff Furr, who wrote The Myth That Made Us, and some other folks, and I can't remember their names, but one of the things that they talked about in that panel was a pilot program that had been put together, I think, in Cambridge, using ARPA money, but they provided funding for families, and it actually showed the data over the year of the pilot program. People actually increased their work hours, so both full-time employment, part-time employment, seasonal employment. So parents were able to work, they were working more. Handing people money does not mean that they're not gonna work. They tracked, how much time they spent with their kids, so they were a lot more involved in parenting. So it's a really important program, and we can argue about whether it's a want or a need, but it's certainly needed by some families in town. I had a question about the Friends of Acton Nursing Services. Heather, you mentioned that they contribute to some of your programming. Do you have an amount that they contribute annually? A guesstimate?
A guesstimate. I would have to get back to you.
You can get back
I
to
don't
me.
know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah, well, it's great that we have Friends of Council on Aging and
They're
Friends of
very
Acton
supportive.
Nursing Service to help support those budgets. And this is also a question for you, Heather. You mentioned that the public health nurse position has been vacant since FY '23. So who is fulfilling those duties that are required by the state, like disease surveillance? You?
Me,
You?
yeah. No, mainly me, but we have split off some of the other things, like our blood pressure clinics, as an example. So we do 2 a month in the building, in our office, and then we do 2 in the community, one at Sachem Way, one at Windsor Green. Our nurse case manager, when her hours are low, we give those to her. If they're not low, we take them. So it's whoever it works for between the 3 nursing staff.
Okay, and I know you're working to get that position filled as well as the per diem nurses.
We did fill it briefly over the summer. The nurse that took it had a lot on her plate and didn't stay beyond 3 weeks, maybe, unfortunately. Yeah, well, anyways, so we're working on that. Penny and I are working to, strategize how to find someone who is willing to do the position. With healthcare right now, same with the per diem staff. As you all know, when you call a doctor's office, are you on call for 45 minutes on hold waiting to talk to someone? Probably. That's the dynamic of healthcare right now, unfortunately. So there's, a shortage of staff across all disciplines. And unfortunately, nursing is one of those for us.
And I want to add too that the public health nurse is a unique nursing position. It is a little bit of a different look at how nursing operates, but it is absolutely critical to our community to have a public health nurse doing what they do. And I also want to give a big thank you to Heather too for doing some of our communication campaigns around some of the viruses and bacteria-based illnesses that are going on out there. And we'll continue to put more information out as best we can with the staffing that we have.
Is one of the potential strategies to create a full-time position that we can share with another community? Because right now I see it's half-time. Thanks, John.
Yes.
Awesome, I hope that works out. I just have one other question, again for you, Heather. So I noticed a shift in there was an increase in services of physical therapy and occupational therapy. And I think I remember from last year that was a deliberate shift in focus. Can you describe any impact on revenue that the department brings in?
So the therapies do bring in more money overall. The therapists are paid more at a per visit rate for HMOs and PPOs. And then having a therapy case in general for Medicare, it does pay at a higher level. But there are more therapy needs, I think, as people are aging in the community. Unfortunately, there's been more falls and injuries, but there's also a lot of orthopedic surgery, which that shift has definitely raised up the visit levels for the therapists. And our therapists are not town employees. They're through our contractual line items, so they're as needed.
Thank you. And I just want to put a plug in for the bistro. I've had some meals there, it's really good, as well as, I'm not a senior yet, but they let me sneak in and participate in the program. So I saw a great movie, and I walked into the horticultural therapy room, and there was like it was buzzing in there. I wasn't allowed to participate, but I could tell, it was intense.
Penny, I feel like you were directing that comment to me, like boomers that don't realize yet that they want to.
I live with a boomer. My parents are boomers. I love my boomers, and I want to make the world right for them as much as I can.
As a boomer.
Thank you, Health and Human Services team. Yes, please. Now for our closing act. We have our Department of Public Works. This is a department led by Director Corey York. And Corey is on his way to the mic. Corey, welcome.
Good evening. Just quick introductions. I'm Corey York. I'm the Public Works Director. Next to me is Chin Ru Pang, who's our town engineer, and then Carl Maria is our operations superintendent. Others in the management team that aren't here tonight is Ryan Hunt, who is our tree warden, Sean O'Malley, who's our cemetery superintendent, and then Karen Spitzeneff, who's our business manager. So the Public Works Department, which starts on page 153, it's comprised of several different divisions. The first one being Highway Division, which is made up of the roads crew, the fleet maintenance, and the transfer station. And then in addition, we have the trees and grounds, engineering, and cemetery. We do a lot of the things you would expect as far as upkeep and maintenance of the public infrastructure around town and the grounds around town buildings. But we do a lot of close collaboration with other departments that is probably not always well-known, but we maintain the rail trails in Acton. We assist the health department with the household hazardous waste days. We're also in charge of the community gardens, so we've partnered with the conservation this year to kind of revamp that programming and build upon that. We also work regularly with recreation for the upkeep of the parks and assisting with their events and activities. We work regularly with police and fire, assisting with emergency response, and in addition to looking over and trying to address various traffic concerns that have come up. So as you get into looking at the departments, I mean, some of the accomplishments and goals and sort of ongoing efforts that just wanted to highlight is, and one of them is our substantial completion of Gardner Playground. So that's coming along really well. And just the continued efforts to try to improve the employee safety and well-being and overall work efficiencies through the DPW replacement project. In addition to that, we did just complete the rehab of the sewer plant down on Adams Street. That, as you know, the sewer is over 20 years old, so we went through a round of repairs and upgrades down there. And in our cemetery, they were able to acquire a fairly significant grant to help them reconstruct the entrance to the chapel to allow accessibility into that down at Woodlawn Cemetery. And then kind of the last, one of the last big efforts that just highlighting is we've been building upon a comprehensive stormwater management plan. So we've been going through a lot of that, looking at the inventory and priorities And we've been updating sort of the townwide prioritization for complete streets. So we've been collaborating with the Transportation Advisory Committee on that. So there's been a lot going on. Those are just kind of the key highlights. Some of the performance indicators we have for the department, as you look in the budget, it has the average daily sewage flows. That's something that the plant operators are looking at all day long. The flows for them, they have the trends and the historical data, so it allows them, if they see an unusual spike and it's, say, seasonal with the spring rains, it could be an indicator of an illicit detection connection to the system, or it could be say, a leaky pipe joint. So it allows us to target areas to do further inspections or cammering in the pipe to identify those issues. And then if there's an issue with a private connection, we can work with those homeowners or the commercial properties to address that. We also have the road paving index that we look at how much we pave in a year and try to make sure we're keeping up with the infrastructure, keeping it safe, and sort of targeting various projects we know that are coming so that we can kind of work that together. And then we also have the salt use, which relates to our winter maintenance operations. So something like that helps us to, as we monitor our winter operations and equipment calibration, to make sure we're not putting down too much and the equipment's working properly, as well as looking at our storm response and our practices of how we do it and other ways we can be doing it differently or just improving upon how we do it. So it gives us those opportunities to evaluate in some of those situations. So as we get into the budget reports themselves, which start on page 160, first one you'll see is cemetery. So the salary only increased by about 1.3%. Part of the reasoning was there's a four-person crew, so half of them are new hires as for backfilling of vacancies, as well as the clerical position was reduced to a part-time position. So that was only like about a 1.3% increase for salaries. When you look at the other non-salary line items, we did some adjustments based on actuals, but there was no change in those line items. So basically, the benefit there is with the support of the Cemetery Commission is that budget only increased about 1.2% across that. On the next page, you'll see the engineering, same, you'll see an increase in the salaries. And then we did, for the non-set line items, there is a reduction overall of those. So the overall budget increase for engineering was about 3.4%. And then you get into the next one, which is kind of a composite of all the various budgets that relate to highway. So the salaries increased by about 3.2%. But overall, as you look down through the line items, you'll see a lot of changes. But overall, all the non-salary line items, they were reduced by about 0.7%. So as you look at the various ones, you'll see snow and ice. There was actually no change in that budget. There was an increase in the fuel to reflect the expenditures that we're seeing. And there was also a slight increase in machinery. The machinery budget is what we use in the fleet division for the maintenance and upkeep of the town vehicles and equipment. You'll notice a lot of those items were reduced in that budget, but there were increases to the police and the town fleet line item. That's just due to the aging fleet and the sort of the more frequent repairs we're seeing coming down the line. As we get into the other budgets on the highway, you'll see in the highway budget, overall, it was decreased by about 5%. In our roads budget, which we use for road paving and things like that, that was decreased as well, but probably a little over 6%. And special projects was reduced as well. We also have a couple enterprise budgets that we operate through the DPW. So the first one is the transfer station. There were some adjustments in there related to actuals. So you'll see working with finance and facilities, there was an increase in electricity to account for what we're seeing for consumption out there. And then there was a decrease in a line item for trash bags, and we have the pays to throw trash bags for that program, so we're seeing less acquisition of those, so there was a decrease there as well. And for the last item in there was like the capital outlay was increased, and that was to reflect the replacement of the front end loader that we're proposing in that budget. For the sewer enterprise fund, which covers the operations of sewer, you'll see a couple increases. One is the contractual line item. What's happening is we're nearing the end of the contract for our operations out there, so we'll be in the process of seeking proposals and awarding a contract effective this July. And what I'm seeing at least with a lot of these contracts that we either acquired pre-pandemic or right during the onset, as we getting into new contracts, we're seeing big cost increases for materials and services. So we increased that line item with the expectation that we're expecting to see that the new pricing go up. And as well as you'll see some changes to the debt service section, and that relates to fluctuations for the original debt for the system, as well as we finish that sewer rehab, the new loan payments will be coming online, so that's in anticipation of that as well. As far as the budget itself, looking at the DPW operating budgets, when we look at across the salary, non-salary, in the general fund, we're proposing about a 1.7% increase overall. So that's kind of the DPW in a nutshell, so I'll take any questions you might have.
So many questions, but let me just ask a couple. So I've been an advocate for a while of thinking of sidewalks as, life-saving equipment. They keep people off the roads. And the condition of the roads as something that's a variable. I understand that we take care of the roads based on, that careful analysis that you hired that has, the condition of all the roads and when they need to be done, so that if we drew the line differently than we do now, kept the roads going a little bit longer, could we shift our Chapter 90 use or our regular budget use to shift more towards sidewalks?
If you look at the paving matrix, you'll see we're already paving less. We're probably paving in the range of, I say, 4 to 5 miles of road annually, and that was to sort of have a service life expectations, say approximately about 25 years. Obviously, like a subdivision street would be longer than 25, a busier road would be less. So we're currently paving under that just due to other things that are going on. We have leveraged some of the funding, like Chapter 90, we've leveraged for Acton Center when we were adding in bike lanes, things like that. But we're also in a position that whereas we're building these various programs, we're trying to better link them together. So I'll say in the case of like Acton Center, we finished that. We're in the process now of, as we've evaluated road conditions, Main Street sort of coming out of the center towards Route 2 is one of the high priorities as far as road condition. So what we've been doing is been working with a consultant. We've held a public forum to look at the corridor and how we would connect the dots as we've been doing sort of complete street accommodations coming sort of from South Acton up. We have different pieces, and now we're looking at how to connect the dots basically from Kelly's Corner to Acton Center. And part of this process is kind of a multi-step, is to look at the vision of how we want the cross-section of the road to look when Complete Streets comes, with the intent, as we get up here, it gets pretty wide. So if there's the ability to know what the cross-section is gonna look like, and we can make some of those adjustments to repair the road surface, make it safe, but knowing that we're doing it in a way that we're providing the space needed for whether it's a shared use path or a sidewalk or a combination of both. So that's kind of a piece that we're looking at as a new approach for our road paving program and we do it in pieces, so it's not necessarily we're gonna do the whole thing at once, or we might, but the idea would be is that we're taking a closer look at the big picture and trying to come up with that. In addition to that, we're doing a sort of an evaluation of our storm drainage of what's under the ground, what it looks like, so we're getting a better picture of that. So in addition, we've focused on looking at the drainage in that similar section, but throughout town, trying to phase it in so that we know what's happening under the ground, we know what we're trying to do on top, and then how do we phase in the different pieces? And in my head, the road paving program should be the last thing we're doing, so one of the pieces that, it's always a struggle, but working with the public utilities so that we don't run to another situation where we finish paving it and then all of a sudden the electric company or gas company come and want to cut through it. So we've worked with them, as even with the gas company with the gas leaks, and we've enticed them that if there's a road that we know the surface is in rough shape and we're planning to pave it, that if they would expedite something to remove some leaks, and they did the temporary patch, we were going to pave it anyway, so we could do that. So we've been fortunate that it's worked. I think there was a section of Prospect Street that had some pretty significant leaks, and the road was in bad shape, so we were planning on paving it anyway. So we were able to get National Grid interested to come out and make those repairs so that we could stop those leaks. And we've worked with them on various issues, but those are all the sort of the different programs we're building and we're looking at and hoping as all these pieces are coming together, we're advancing in a more logical approach so that, like I said, the last thing we do is pave it, that we're not paving it and then realize we wish we did something else. So, and that's something that Complete Streets is a big part of that, is if we can do some of those modifications in line with the paving and know that we have room to work out whatever details we have as far as trying to preserve trees or other kind of features. So it's something we're working towards, trying to get that into our system.
Thanks so much. Let's see, next question. Some of the maintenance that you do along, roads and sidewalks involves, pushing back the encroaching poison ivy, for example. And I mentioned the poison ivy because there's been some curiosity about how to characterize how much time, effort, or gallons we're putting into herbicides to remove poison ivy. And do you have any way of sort of characterizing the scale of that operation, either by, how much we're using, or how many miles of PI removal we're doing, or any of that?
Yeah, as far as herbicide use, the tree warden who oversees the vegetation management probably has a number, as he probably has to report it. But I will say, a lot of the requests we get for poison ivy removal, the nature of where it likes to grow is near wetlands, and we're not allowed to use herbicides in those locations. So we may do some kind of a mowing or clearing, but typically a lot of the places that we're running into poison ivies, we're not treating it with herbicides. So.
First, thank you for working out a plan for working hand in glove with the utilities so that you have the most efficient use of the paving program. That's a great step in the right direction. Thank you. I do have a quick question on the ADA work at the chapel. Were you able to do that without having to relocate the organ? I know that was a bone of contention with the family who gifted that chapel.
Sure, yeah. When I came on board, I think the first round of that through the CPC had already gone through, so I kind of came to the second round. So what we've done is broken it into pieces, because they have, the project we're doing right now is to get, repair the sort of the accessibility to get into the building. And then once we can get that, the commissioners are working on the sort of the interior improvements of what that would be. And I know the organ was one of the issues, because I believe the area where it is an area they're talking about a bathroom and having a new septic system. And they've talked about using the system, but having some kind of a technology improvement that they've discussed. So it is a next step that, as of right now, I think there's a consensus of how it's going to move forward, but we haven't worked those details out. Right now we're trying to get the access issues resolved to get in, and then we're going to work on those. But I think we're in a good place to make those changes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Corey, as far as the sewer enterprise fund, it looks like you're averaging 160 gallons per day. That's a little more than half of your permitted volume. So what are the peaks like?
We've definitely had peaks in the spring that have jumped quite a bit, which has had us looking into doing cammering, chasing down leaks, making repairs, so trying to prevent some of those surges. So I could probably get you that information, because we do have a graph that kind of shows the average daily flows and the peaks. So we have that information I can share. I just don't have it with me tonight.
And back to repaving, if I remember correctly, we have about 127 miles of road in town. And if you say a 25-year life, then yeah, you're talking five miles a year, which from the graph, it looks like you may not be hitting lately, but the life of the graph, it looks like you've been on it. So.
Thanks, Corey. Question, the front end loader that needs to be replaced, is the new one that you're looking at more efficient than what the current model is? Is it roughly like the same size of a big giant front end loader, or is it a smaller one for the needs of?
Yeah, it's the same size as what we're getting, what we have right now. When we replaced this one, we did downgrade from the prior version, because I think when we had the older front end loader, it was when we were running a much bigger operation down there, when we were in that old Nesbitt system. So we did downsize it. As you know, we use that front end loader 6 days a week when the transfer station open, as well as the winter operations. The one that's out there right now is a 2013, so just efficiencies within the technology itself, the newer one meets much more stringent emission standards, the fuel consumption, all that kind of stuff. It has sort of new features built in that it's just inherently more efficient than what we have.
Thanks. I will say that the new contractor you have doing the compost, much better than the old one was. I mean, I've seen twice where it's been really full after like Thanksgiving and like Christmas and stuff like that, but otherwise, he was collecting it the other day and it was pretty full, and they came and took it away, which is pretty good to see, so.
Great, thank you, yes.
So looking ahead a couple of years, imagining a future where we do successfully get a new DPW building, do you have a sense that either that, decreases your costs in some way, the growth in your costs because it's more efficient or easier to use, or does it increase your costs because there's going to be a lot of, new stuff to take care of, or what? Do you have a sense yet of how a new DPW building would impact the overall operations costs?
I don't necessarily have a specific number, but I would say we're kind of jammed in there right now, so as we're working on different things, as far as even just storing equipment, we spend a lot of time in the morning getting it out. We spend a lot of time at night trying to organize it, so in case of different calls or what we know is coming. So there's different efficiencies that will definitely help give us more hours in the day to do more work. So right now, I would say it definitely is going to be a benefit as far as work efficiencies. I would say it'd be a benefit in employee safety and well-being, as far as just having the space and we're not jammed in. If you make it, we're going to be giving a tour of the building this Saturday, so if everyone has a chance to come down and just look around and see what the facility looks like, overall is just, it's time. It's been since 1970. You see in the men's room, there's a locker rooms next to the urinals. We're just jamming it in where we can. As most other DPWs, where we have storage trailers over the yard, we have canopy sheds trying to just protect the equipment. I mean, equipment is expensive, so we're trying to prolong the life and protect it. So I think a new building sized appropriately would be a real benefit for not just us, but for the community and everything we do that would just allow us to do more, so.
Back to paving. What is the schedule for Sudbury Road? Was it sort of not on the calendar because we were expecting the Powder Mill sewer line to go up the hill?
Yes, it was a combination of things. During the pandemic, we were working on, it's amazingly for a short section of road, there's a lot of underground utilities there. So when the pandemic had hit and traffic was really light, we went through and rebuilt a lot of the tops in preparation. And then I would say at that time, we started hearing from Eversource. They had plans of some upgrades, which was going to involve excavation on the road. So we've been coordinating with them to try to see what was going on. In addition to the Powder Mill sewer, we were kind of watching that. So most of those issues have been resolved. The last piece we just worked out was Eversource was the plan that they had as far as running new underground utilities down from the substation is not happening anytime in the near future. So I believe we have it on the schedule for one of the next rounds. So it's coming. It was just, there was a lot happening. We didn't want to jump ahead, so we were trying to pan all that out.
I figured there was a reason, I just didn't know it, but the hundreds of folks who travel up to the senior center will really appreciate a more smooth road because it's pretty treacherous. I have a question. I think this is for John. What is the duration of the borrowing for the stormwater program? Because I noticed that it looks like there's something I don't understand in the annual debt service. It's higher for the lower amount compared to the radio project. So I'm just wondering if there's a really big difference between the loan term.
I think I could answer that. Could you help me where you are and where you're looking at, just so I
I
can
wrote a
see
note and I was just looking for the page number. Corinne's
17?
got it. Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you. So I think I understand the question, but I just wanted to double check the number. So your question was, the project's going to be an $850,000 project, and we're estimating $50,000 a year in borrowing costs.
Yep.
And that seems low?
Compared with the higher amount for the radio project, which was a lower total borrowed amount.
Under Mass General Law, you're allowed to borrow for items for certain durations. And so for a building, you can borrow for 30 years. But for a radio thing, it's less, maybe 10 years. So I don't know which is which, but that's certainly the reason why.
Okay.
That's a longer borrowing period.
Okay. So I have another comment about sewer. It looks like, if I'm comparing correctly, the FY '23 contract with the proposed FY '26. Well, first of all, let me just say that it seems not in the town's best interest to advertise in our budget, which is a public document, what we're budgeting for the contract before the bids come in. That just seems like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So that's a criticism. I don't know if it's avoidable. But it looks like it's 34% increase from FY '23 to FY '26. And is there any hope that, I don't know, shifting to another company, or is that just what the costs are? It's really high. That's a really big jump.
Yeah, as we're working with the sewer target team and knowing that we have a new contract coming, it will be putting out for requests for proposals. So we'll be seeking various consultants, so hoping everyone sharpens their pencil and comes in with proposals that we can review and that. So we're hoping for better numbers. We just, with being the enterprise fund, we wanted to make sure we didn't fall in the red, and we had to come back to town meeting and ask for more, so, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then my last comment is, Laura mentioned for transportation that one of her goals for next year is developing a strategic plan. and I noticed that the cemetery, and also I should have mentioned this when Melissa was here, and recreation are called master plans. And I think that it would be more meaningful to have a name that was strategic or comprehensive or long-term. That seems to be more in alignment with what it is that that plan will accomplish, and master is not quite as meaningful. So that's just a suggestion for the budget book, the narrative.
Sure.
Did you see the video on Facebook that we posted of the trucks going out last Friday, or the first Friday snow we had?
It was pretty awesome.
Jason Kidder, who was the assistant superintendent, was the one in the video telling the guys to put their lights on and whatever else he was telling them to do. But people all over the country that like old Mack trucks are really liking that video. And I think it speaks to the work that we do, where we're maximizing the life of these old Mack trucks to provide a service that's critical to the residents. You know, that day it was only an inch or two, but it was a icy one, right? So they get out there quick, got the salt out, using these old trucks that people think should have been off the road a while ago. So I think that was pretty cool. Check it out if you have a chance.
Do they have any antique value?
They do date back to 1987, so maybe.
Could you consider selling ads on YouTube?
I think that we really need to, repeat that with all of our departments, because I think more engaging social media content is going to be really appreciated by the followers of the town's page.
Alyssa, are you saying our meetings are not entertaining?
I'm talking about, like TikTok-esque content on the Facebook page for the town.
You're on YouTube too, you know.
I'm sure we could carve out 30 or 40 seconds of this meeting that would be wonderfully amusing.
I would leave to the chairs to conclude the meeting any way you'd like, but I'd appreciate if we could give the DPW team a round of applause on their way out. Thank you. Nice work.
I move to adjourn the select board meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I already did, didn't I do?
You're going to do it again.
Okay. I get two microphones.
Just say it.
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Second. Unfortunately, we have to do this roll call. Scott?
Aye.
Gang? Is this Steve?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
An aye.
Allison, if you're still there? We're done.